Hey guys, just want to say thanks for tuning in today. Smash that subscribe button if you're new here, and as always, please like this video if you enjoy the stories. Now, let's get into the stories.
I did not think the worst night of my life would start with half-price margaritas and a girl who looked better in real life than in her photos. If you asked me that morning what I was doing later, I would have said probably nothing, just scrolling in bed like usual. By 7 p.m., I was sitting in this dim bar downtown that used to be a hardware store, brick walls still exposed, metal beams overhead, music low enough that you could actually think. That place felt safe. Normal, like nothing bad had ever happened there. Her name was Elise. Brown hair, kind of quiet smile, the type of girl who looks like she reads thrillers, but also volunteers at animal shelters. We matched 3 days before. Nothing wild in her profile. Just hiking pictures, one blurry concert shot, and a line that said looking for something real. I almost swiped left because it sounded too serious, but I was bored. We talked for a bit on the app. Nothing deep. Favorite food, stupid childhood stories, that kind of stuff. She suggested drinks first. That should have been the first weird thing. Usually I have to push a little for that, but she seemed relaxed about it. Not desperate, just direct. When she walked into the bar, she looked around like she was checking exits. I noticed that because I do the same thing without thinking. She saw me, smiled, and came over. No awkward hug, just sat down across from me like we had done this before. The first half hour was fine. Honestly, better than fine. She laughed at my jokes. She told me about her job at a marketing office near the river. She said she lived in an apartment above a bakery and wakes up to the smell of bread every morning. I remember thinking that sounded kind of perfect. She barely touched her drink, though. That stuck out. She would lift the glass, take the smallest sip, and set it back exactly where it was, lining it up with the napkin like she cared about angles. I checked my phone once while she was talking about hiking trails she liked. Just a quick glance. Tinder notification at the top, nothing unusual. Probably some random like. I swiped it away without opening it. About 40 minutes in, she said she was going to the bathroom. She left her purse on the chair. That felt casual, like she trusted me. I watched her walk toward the hallway near the back. I don't know why I opened Tinder again. Maybe boredom. Maybe habit. Maybe I wanted to see if she could unmatch me mid-date or something dumb like that. People do weird stuff. Her profile was still there. Same pictures, same bio. But at the bottom, under the line about looking for something real, there was new text. One more to go. I just stared at it. I thought maybe I was looking at the wrong profile. But it was her face, her dog in the second picture of the hiking shot. Everything the same. I refreshed it. Closed the app. Opened it again. Still there. One more to go. My first thought was that she changed her bio while sitting at this table, which would be insane. Like who updates their dating profile during a date. My second thought was that maybe it had always been there and I somehow missed it. But I read her profile at least twice before meeting her. I felt stupid even reacting to it. It could mean anything. Maybe she meant one more date before deleting the app. Maybe she was joking. Maybe it was some inside thing. But something about the timing made my chest feel tight. I checked the time. She had been gone maybe 3 minutes. I looked toward the hallway. No sign of her. Another minute passed, then two. I told myself to relax. Lines for the bathroom happen. People scroll in there. Maybe she was fixing her makeup. Then my phone buzzed again. Another Tinder notification. From her. Not a message, just a profile update. I opened it. Same text, one more to go. But this time there was a small red dot next to her name, like the app does when someone is active right now. I felt this weird drop in my stomach, because if she was active, she was on her phone. And if she was on her phone, she was doing something in that bathroom. I checked the bar around me. Normal people. A couple on a date. Two guys watching a game on a small tube above the bar. Bartender wiping down glasses. I told myself to chill out. This was nothing. She came back about 5 minutes later. She sat down, smiled again, asked if she missed anything. I just nodded and said no. I didn't bring up the bio. I wanted to see if she would. She picked up her drink, and this time took a real sip. I asked her casually if she was still talking to other people on the app. She said yeah, a few. Nothing serious. She asked me the same question. I said kind of, but not really. She nodded. The rest of the date felt slightly off after that. She started asking stranger questions, if anyone would notice if I didn't come home one night. I laughed them off, but my brain was replaying that line over and over. One more to go. After another 20 minutes, she checked her phone and said she had an early morning and should head out. She offered to split the bill. I paid anyway. It was $46 total. Not a big deal. We walked outside together. The street was quiet, colder than I expected. She put me quickly and said we should do this again. Then she walked toward the parking garage across the street. I watched her go in. I didn't leave right away. I opened Tinder again. Her profile was gone. Not unmatched. Gone. I searched her name. Nothing. I stood there under the streetlight feeling dumb for caring this much. Then my phone buzzed. Not from Tinder, from a number I didn't recognize. No message preview, just a notification. I opened it. A single photo. It was me, sitting at the table inside the bar, taken from behind, slightly to the left. You could see the back of my head and her across from me. Time-stamped 5 minutes ago. I looked out at the bar windows, dark from where I was standing. Another buzz. Another photo. This one was from outside, me standing under the streetlight, looking at my phone, taken from across the street near the parking garage entrance. My hands started sweating. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the street. There was a car idling near the corner, headlights off. Another buzz. This time just text. Almost done. I felt something snap in my brain. I started walking fast toward my own car, which was parked 2 blocks away. I didn't run because I didn't want to look dramatic, but my heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. As I turned the corner, my phone buzzed again. Tinder notification. I stopped under a flickering street lamp and opened it. Her profile was back. New picture at the top. It was a photo of me walking away from the bar just now, taken from behind. And the bio still said one more to go. But underneath it, there was a small check mark icon next to my name, like I had completed something. I felt like the ground wasn't solid anymore, like I was in a video game and someone else had the controller. I refreshed the app. Her profile updated again. The line changed. Done. I heard a car door slam behind me. I didn't look. I just ran. I don't remember unlocking my car. I don't remember getting inside. I just remember slamming the door and locking it, hands shaking so bad I dropped my keys twice. I looked in the rearview mirror. The parking garage entrance was visible from where I was parked, and I could see her, standing there under the concrete ceiling, not moving, just watching. My phone buzzed one last time before I threw it onto the passenger seat. Tinder notification. Match expired. I drove home like every red light was trying to trap me. I checked my mirrors every 5 seconds. No one followed me. When I got back to my apartment, I sat in my car for a full 10 minutes before going inside. I deleted Tinder that night, deleted my account, changed my number the next day. I told myself it was some messed up prank. Maybe she had friends helping her. Maybe I was part of some weird online game. But a week later, I read a local news article. About 3 guys reported missing over the last 2 months, all in their 20s, all last seen meeting someone from a dating app. I don't use dating apps anymore. Sometimes I still think about that line. One more to go. And I always wonder if it meant me. I knew something was off before he even sat down, but I ignored it because that is what I always do. I tell myself I am being dramatic. I tell myself not every guy is weird. I tell myself it is just nerves. If I could rewind that night, I would stop myself at the front door of my apartment and just stay home. But instead, I grabbed my jacket, checked my reflection one last time, and left. His name was Daniel. We matched 2 days before. His profile was clean. Too clean, maybe. Just a few photos. One in a lake, one in a gym mirror, one with a dog that looked borrowed. His bio said he worked in logistics and liked late-night drives. Nothing creepy. Just normal enough. We agreed to meet at this 24-hour diner off the highway. Not the cute downtown kind. This one had flickering fluorescent lights and cracked vinyl booths. I picked it because it was public and always busy. Plus, I did not want him knowing where I live. I got there first, ordered a soda, and sat in a booth near the window. From where I was sitting, I could see the parking lot and the highway beyond it. Cars passing, headlights streaking by. It felt open, like nothing could sneak up on me. He walked in exactly at 9:12 p.m. I know because I checked the time when the bell above the door rang. He was taller than I expected. Broad shoulders. Dark hoodie. He scanned the diner before he saw me. Not like he was nervous. More like he was counting people. He smiled when he reached the table, sat across from me. His voice was calm, steady. He asked basic stuff at first. How long I had been on Tinder. What I did for work. If I lived alone. That last one he slipped in casually, like it was just another question. I lied and said I had roommates. He nodded slowly, like he was storing that information somewhere. The waitress came, took his order. Black coffee only. No food. That was the first thing that made my stomach twist a little. Who goes to a diner at night and orders only coffee? For the first 15 minutes, it was fine. Not amazing, not terrible. Just normal. He kept eye contact the entire time. Barely blinked. It felt intense, but I tried to tell myself some people are just like that. Then he leaned back slightly and asked if I felt safe. It was random, out of nowhere. We were talking about music and then suddenly that. I laughed a little because it caught me off guard. I said, yeah, of course. We are in a diner. Right then my phone buzzed on the table between us. We both looked down at the same time. Tinder notification. I remember thinking how weird the timing was. I picked up my phone and unlocked it. The notification preview was short. User has prior reports. My brain did not even process it at first. I thought maybe it was some general safety update. But when I opened the app, his profile popped up at the top of my messages. And right under his name, in small gray text, it said user has prior reports. Proceed with caution. My throat went dry instantly. I looked up at him. He was watching my face, not my phone. He smiled slightly like he already knew what I saw. I asked him if he had gotten that notification too. He tilted his head a little and said he did not see anything. My hands started sweating. I went back to his profile, refreshed it. The warning was still there. I clicked on it. A small info box popped up explaining that multiple users had reported him for inappropriate behavior and that Tinder encourages meeting in safe public spaces. My heart was pounding so loud I was scared he could hear it. I tried to act normal. I set my phone down slowly and asked him what he meant earlier when he asked if I felt safe. He shrugged and said he just cares about that kind of thing. That some guys are weird and he does not want me to think he is like that. My brain was screaming. I picked up my phone again and pretended to check a text. Instead, I screenshotted the warning, sent it to my best friend with a quick message saying call me in 5 minutes. He kept talking, asking more questions. This time more specific. What car I drove. Where exactly my apartment was located. If my roommates were home tonight. I repeated the lie about roommates. He stared at me for a second longer than comfortable. My phone buzzed again. Text from my friend. She was calling. I answered and put it on speaker. Acted annoyed. Said something about an emergency with our other friend. That I might have to leave. He did not react the way most people would. No disappointment. No confusion. Just a calm nod. He said that was too bad. I started gathering my things. That is when he leaned forward slightly and said something that made my stomach drop. He said it is good you met me somewhere public. I froze. He took a sip of his coffee, finally, after it had been sitting there untouched. I forced a smile and said, yeah, safety first. As I slid out of the booth, my phone buzzed again. Another Tinder notification. I looked at it while standing. Profile under review. I did not open it. I just shoved my phone into my jacket pocket. I walked toward the register to pay for my soda. It was $3.50. I put a $5 bill down and told the waitress to keep the change. I could feel him watching me the entire time. When I pushed the diner door open, the cold air hit my face and I could finally breathe a little. The parking lot was half empty now. Fewer cars than before. I walked fast to my car. I unlocked it and got inside, locking the doors immediately. For a second, I just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, trying to calm down. Then I looked up. He was standing outside the diner doors. Not leaving, not getting into a car. Just standing there watching the parking lot. Watching me. My phone buzzed again. Against my better judgment, I opened Tinder. His profile was gone from my matches, but there was a message from Tinder support. We have received multiple reports regarding this user. Thank you for prioritizing your safety. I felt sick. I started the car and backed out quickly. As I drove past the diner entrance, I glanced to the side. He was still there, and he was smiling. I drove straight to my friend's house instead of my apartment. I did not want to risk him following me home. I kept checking my rearview mirror the entire way. No headlights stayed behind me for long. When I got to her place, I told her everything. Showed her the screenshots. She kept saying I was lucky. The next morning, I read more about Tinder safety features. Apparently, they only send those notifications after multiple verified complaints. I reported him too. A week later, I got an email saying his account had been permanently removed. That should have made me feel better. It did not. Because 3 nights after that, I was walking into my apartment building after work. And taped to the inside of the glass front door was a small piece of paper. No name, no envelope. Just 4 words written in black ink. Did you feel safe? I stood there staring at it while other residents walked past me, not even noticing. I never saw him again after that. But sometimes when my phone buzzes randomly at night, even if it is just a weather alert or a spam text, my heart jumps back to that diner booth. To the exact second he asked that question. And the app warned me right on time. I should have left the second she pointed at the darkest corner of the bar and said we needed to sit there because the cameras would not see us clearly. But when you're already on the date and trying to seem chill, your brain does this stupid thing where it downplays everything. It tells you that you are overthinking, that maybe she just hates being photographed, that maybe she has a crazy ex. There is always some reasonable explanation if you look hard enough. Her name was Marla. We matched a week before. She had this sharp smile in her pictures, like she was always about to say something sarcastic. Dark hair, pale skin, eyes that looked almost silver in one of the photos. Her bio was short. Just said she liked old movies and quiet places. That last part should have stood out more. We agreed to meet at this underground cocktail bar near the train station. It used to be a storage basement or something because you had to go down a narrow staircase with exposed pipes along the ceiling. The place was known for being dim on purpose. Candles on tables, low hanging bulbs, music that sounded like it came from a different decade. I got there first and grabbed a small table near the middle. Not too close to the bar, not too far from the exit. Basic safety stuff. I always do that without even thinking about it. She texted that she was outside. When she came down the stairs, she looked different from her photos. Not in a bad way, just more intense. She scanned the room fast, like she was mapping it out. When she saw me, she walked over but did not sit down right away. She leaned in slightly and looked up toward the corners of the ceiling. Then she said we should move. I asked why, and she pointed toward a camera dome above the bar, then another near the entrance. She said it was important they could not see us clearly. She said it like it was obvious. I laughed because I thought she was joking, but she was not smiling. She picked up my drink without asking and carried it toward the farthest corner of the room. A booth almost swallowed by shadow, one candle on the table that barely did anything. I hesitated for a second, then followed. Once we sat down, she seemed to relax, like physically. Her shoulders dropped. She leaned back against the booth and finally smiled. I asked her what that was about. She shrugged and said she just preferred privacy. Said cameras make her uncomfortable. I told her most bars have them. She nodded and said she knew. The waiter came over. She ordered something strong. Whiskey neat. No ice. I ordered another beer. For the first 10 minutes, it felt almost normal. She asked about my job. I told her I work remote, mostly from my apartment where I live alone. I instantly regretted that detail. She asked what floor. I lied and said 3rd even though it is 5th. She told me she used to live in this area but moved recently. Did not say where. When I asked, she just smiled and changed the subject. She kept glancing toward the ceiling though, even in that dark corner. At one point she reached across the table and adjusted the candle so it was angled away from her face. I joked that she was acting like we were in witness protection. She did not laugh. She asked if I had ever thought about how much of our lives are recorded, how every time we go somewhere, someone can pull footage and see exactly who we were with. I said I guess that is just how it is now. She stared at me for a few seconds and said, "Neither of you are careful." That's when the vibe really shifted. I asked what she meant. She leaned forward and lowered her voice, even though the music was loud enough that no one could hear us anyway. She said some people have to be careful, that sometimes you do not want proof you were somewhere. My stomach felt tight. I asked if she was in trouble or something. She smiled again, but it did not reach her eyes. She said not anymore. The drinks kept coming. She drank fast, but did not seem drunk. Her words were steady, focused. At one point, she asked if anyone knew I was there. I said a friend did, which was not true. She nodded slowly. Then she asked if I ever check if someone is following me. I laughed nervously and said no. She said you should. Around an hour in, I excused myself to use the bathroom, mostly because I needed a break from whatever was happening at that table. In the hallway near the restrooms, there was another camera, small red light blinking. I stood there for a second, thinking about what she said. When I came back, she was not in the booth. My heart jumped. I scanned the room and saw her near the bar, talking to the bartender, pointing up toward one of the camera domes. I watched as the bartender shook his head. She walked back over, slid into the booth, and said they do not control them directly. It is handled by the building. I asked why she cared so much. She looked at me for a long second and then said sometimes footage gets requested by police, by families, by people looking for answers. I felt a cold wave run through me. I asked what answers. She took a slow sip of her drink and said about who someone was last seen with. The air in that booth felt heavy. I asked her straight up if she was joking. She said no. Then she asked if I trusted her. I did not know how to answer that. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, showed me something. It was a news article. I did not catch the headline fully, but I saw a blurry image of a guy. The article mentioned a missing persons case from 2 months ago. She scrolled quickly past it before I could read more. She said sometimes people disappear, and the last thing anyone has is a grainy camera image from a bar. I asked what that had to do with us. She leaned closer and said it is better if there is no image at all. My brain was screaming at me to leave. I said I needed some air. She grabbed my wrist lightly, not hard, just enough to stop me for a second. She said if you walk out alone, the entrance camera will get a clear shot of you. I stared at her hand on my wrist. She let go slowly. I stood up anyway. As I stepped out of the booth, I noticed something on the table near her bag, a small black object, not a phone, not keys. It looked like a tiny camera. I felt dizzy. I walked toward the stairs, my heart pounding so loud it felt unreal. Halfway up, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I did not answer. Another buzz. A photo. I opened it. It was me, sitting in that dark booth, taken from an angle that did not match any of the bar cameras, taken from the table. My chest felt like it was collapsing. Another photo came through. This one from when I stood up, her face partially visible in the corner. I turned around. She was at the bottom of the stairs now. Not chasing me, not calling out, just watching. I rushed up the rest of the stairs and pushed out into the street. The night air felt too thin. My phone buzzed again. Text this time. Now they know you were here. I did not respond. I walked fast down the block, not looking back. Another message. You should have stayed in the blind spot. I blocked the number while walking. I did not go home. I went to a crowded fast food place 2 streets over and sat there for almost an hour pretending to scroll. When I finally checked Tinder, her profile was gone. Completely gone. Like it never existed. The next day, I searched for that news article. I found it. A guy missing after meeting someone from a dating app. Last seen at a bar near the train station. Security footage too dark to clearly identify the person he was with. I never went back to that bar. And now whenever someone suggests sitting somewhere the cameras cannot see clearly, I leave before the drinks even arrive. I did not think anything weird would happen that night because it was literally a bowling alley. Like, what is scary about rented shoes and sticky floors? I almost canceled too, which is the part that messes with me now. If I had just stayed home and watched some random show, none of this would be burned into my head the way it is. His name was Caleb. We matched 4 days before. He seemed normal. Boring normal. Pictures with friends at barbecue, one hiking shop, one selfie in his car. His bio said he liked simple things and was tired of games. Nothing dramatic, nothing creepy, just basic. We agreed to meet at this old bowling alley on the edge of town, the kind that still has neon stripes on the walls and an arcade that eats your coins. It felt safe because it was public and loud and full of families on a Friday night. I got there first and paid for a lane. It was $28 for 1 hour. I figured even if the date sucked, at least I could bowl a little. He showed up 5 minutes later wearing jeans and a plain gray shirt. Average height. Average smile. He seemed a little stiff, but not in a scary way. Just first date nerves. We shook hands instead of hugging, which I appreciated. At first, it was fine. We took turns bowling. He was actually pretty good. I was not. We joked about it. Nothing deep. Just light conversation. Where we grew up. What we do for work. He said he works night shifts at a warehouse. That he sleeps during the day and feels disconnected from most people. I remember thinking that made sense. His phone stayed in his pocket the whole time. I noticed because I am used to guys checking my screen every 2 seconds. But he did not. Halfway through the game, I sat down on the plastic bench to tie my shoe because it felt loose. I pulled out my phone just to check the time. I had a Tinder notification. I opened it without thinking. It was not a message. It was a profile update from one of my matches. Caleb. I frowned because he was literally 10 feet away lining up his shot. I tapped his profile. His bio had changed. It now said currently occupied. That was it. No emoji, no extra words. Just currently occupied. I looked up at him instantly. He was still bowling. He rolled the ball, watched it knock down pins, turned around smiling slightly. His hands were empty. No phone in sight. My brain started racing. Maybe he updated it earlier and I just did not notice. Maybe Tinder glitched and sent the notification late. I refreshed his profile. Still there. Currently occupied. I walked back toward him slowly, trying to act normal. He asked if it was my turn. I nodded and grabbed the ball, but my hands felt off. Like they did not belong to me. I threw it too hard. It slammed into the gutter. He laughed lightly and said tough break. I sat down again and checked the time on the notification. It said just now. My stomach felt weird. I asked him casually if he had been on Tinder much lately. He said not really, said he barely checks it anymore. I asked if he had updated his bio recently. He looked confused and said no. I showed him my screen. He leaned in close to look. His face did not change. He said that is weird. He pulled his phone out finally and unlocked it. Opened Tinder. I watched closely. On his screen, his bio still said tired of games and looking for something real. No currently occupied. He turned his phone toward me so I could see. I felt my pulse in my ears. I refreshed mine again. Currently occupied. I even logged out and back in. Still there. He suggested maybe it was a glitch. I wanted to believe that. We kept bowling, but everything felt wrong after that. Every time he stepped away to grab the ball, I watched his hands. Every time he sat down, I checked if his phone was out. It was always either in his pocket or face down on the bench. About 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Another Tinder notification. I froze before opening it. It was him again. Profile updated. I opened it slowly. Currently occupied had changed. Now it said still occupied. My chest tightened. I looked up at him. He was tying his shoe this time. Both hands clearly visible. His phone was on the bench behind him, screen dark. I stood up and walked over to him. I asked if he was messing with me. He looked genuinely confused. I grabbed his phone off the bench before he could react. He did not try to stop me. I opened Tinder on his phone. Same old bio. No changes. I felt like I was losing my mind. I showed him mine again. still occupied. He stared at my screen longer this time. Then he asked if maybe someone else had access to my account. That thought hit me hard. I shook my head and said no. He asked if I had ever given my password to anyone. I said no again. He looked around the bowling alley slowly, like he was thinking. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. He said, maybe it is not about the account. I asked what he meant. He shrugged and said, maybe it is just letting you know. Letting me know what? He did not answer directly, just picked up his ball and went to bowl again. My hands were shaking now. I checked the profile again. Still occupied. I clicked through his pictures. They looked the same. But on the third photo, the one with him at a barbecue, something felt different. I zoomed in. In the background, near the fence, there was a blurry figure. I did not remember noticing that before. It looked like someone standing too still. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting. Then my phone buzzed again. Another update. I opened it. Currently occupied had changed to do not interrupt. I felt cold all over. I looked up at him, and this time he was not smiling. He was just standing there, holding the bowling ball, staring at me. Not angry, not confused. Just blank. I asked him if he saw that change on his phone. He slowly reached into his pocket and pulled it out again. Unlocked it. Opened Tinder. His bio had changed. Even on his phone now. Currently occupied. His face went pale. He refreshed it. The words shifted in front of us. Do not interrupt. He dropped his phone. It hit the floor hard. Around us, kids were laughing, pins crashing, music playing. Everything normal, except our screens. My phone buzzed again. Last update. I did not want to open it, but I did. Fully occupied. I looked at him. He looked at me, and then the lights above our lane flickered once. Just once. When they came back steady, the lane screen that keeps score had changed. Instead of our names, it said lane reserved. I turned to him. His expression was different now. Not confused. Not scared. Just empty. He said he needed to step outside for air. I did not follow him. I watched him walk toward the exit doors at the end of the alley. He did not look back. I waited 5 minutes. Then 10. He did not return. I checked Tinder one last time. His profile was gone. Completely gone. No match. No conversation history. Nothing. I never saw him again. 2 weeks later, I read an article about a warehouse worker who did not show up for his shift and was reported missing. The name was Caleb. Sometimes I still open Tinder late at night even though I deleted it months ago, just to check. And every once in a while, when the app glitches for a second before loading, I see those words flash on the screen. Currently occupied. I almost did not tell anyone I was going on that date. That is the part that keeps replaying in my head. If I had kept it to myself like I usually do, things might have gone very differently. I used to think the whole check-in thing was dramatic, like something people only do after watching too many crime shows. That night is the reason I do it every single time now. Her name was Ivy. We matched on a random Tuesday night when I could not sleep. Her profile was simple but interesting. No filters, just clear photos. One of her sitting on the hood of an old car, one at a beach during sunset, one close-up where she was not smiling at all. Her bio said she liked quiet drives and long talks that go past midnight. That line stuck with me. We talked for a few days. She responded fast but never overshared. She would ask me things and then answered just enough about herself to keep it balanced. She said she lived about 30 minutes outside the city in a small town I barely knew. She suggested we meet halfway at this roadside bar and grill near a lake, not the tourist lake, the other one, the one mostly locals go to. I had driven past it before, but never stopped. It looked harmless. Wooden sign, string lights around the patio, trucks parked out front. I told 2 of my friends where I was going, sent them her profile, told them I would text when I got home. I did it casually, like a joke, but I still did it. When I pulled into the gravel parking lot, it was already dark, only a few cars there. The lake behind the building looked like a black sheet under the sky. The air smelled like water and fried food. She was already inside. I spotted her at a booth near the back wall. Not in a corner, but close enough to feel private. She looked exactly like her pictures. Same serious expression, same steady eyes. She smiled when she saw me, but it was small. We ordered food, burgers and fries. Nothing fancy. Mine was $14. She paid for her own without hesitation. At first, everything felt normal. She asked about my job. I told her I work in sales. She asked if I live alone. I said yes. She asked how far my place was from here. I said about 25 minutes. She nodded like she was calculating something. About 30 minutes into the date, after we had both finished eating, she leaned back and asked what time I told my friends I would be home. It caught me off guard because I had not mentioned my friends yet. I asked what she meant. She said most people tell someone when they go on a date, especially meeting someone from Tinder. I laughed and said yeah, I told them I would check in when I got back. Her face changed instantly. It was subtle but clear. She frowned. Not angry, just disappointed. She asked what time they were expecting that check-in. I told her probably around 11 or midnight. I said it casually, not thinking much of it. She went quiet for a few seconds. Then she nodded slowly and said that is smart. The rest of the conversation felt different after that. She asked fewer questions about me and more about my routine. What time I usually go to bed, whether I take the highway or back roads home, if my friends live close by. I started to feel like I was filling out a form. I tried to lighten the mood by suggesting we take a short walk by the lake before leaving. She agreed quickly. We stepped outside. The patio lights did not reach far past the building. The path toward the water was barely lit. As we walked, I noticed she kept checking behind us. Not in a nervous way, more like making sure no one was around. We reached a wooden dock that stretched a few feet over the water. It creaked under our weight. She stopped near the end and looked out over the lake. She asked again what time my friends would worry if they did not hear from me. I felt a tightness in my chest. I said they would probably call me if I was late. She asked how long they would wait before calling. I said maybe 30 minutes. She nodded slowly. The air felt heavier out there. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. 10:07 p.m. I casually sent a quick text to my friend saying still here, all good. She noticed. She asked if that was the check-in. I said just a quick update. Her jaw tightened slightly. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. She said that complicates things. I asked what she meant. She did not answer right away. Instead, she stepped closer to me on the dock, close enough that I could see my reflection in her eyes. She asked if I trusted her. I said I barely knew her. She smiled faintly at that. Then she said she likes when people come alone. My pulse started racing. I asked what that meant. She said when no one is expecting them back at a certain time. My brain was screaming now. I took a small step back on the dock. She did not move. She just kept looking at me like she was measuring something. I said I should probably head out soon. She looked toward the dark shoreline for a second, then back at me. She asked if my friends had my location. I lied and said yes. That made her expression change again. This time it was frustration. She muttered something under her breath that I could not fully hear. Then she asked if we could drive somewhere quieter. I said no. She stared at me for a long moment. The silence between us felt louder than the bar music had earlier. I took another step back toward the shore. That's when I heard something behind us. A faint crunch of gravel. I turned my head slightly. There was a shape near the tree line, hard to make out in the dark. My heart started pounding even harder. She noticed I saw it. Her shoulders tensed. She told me not to worry about that. Not to worry about what? She did not clarify. I said I was leaving. I walked off the dock quickly. She followed, but slower. As we reached the edge of the patio lights, I glanced back toward the trees. The shape was gone. Or maybe it was never there. I do not know. We stopped near my car. She asked one last time what exact time my friends would start calling. I said 11:30. She looked at the clock on her phone. 10:24 p.m. She exhaled sharply. Then she said we should call it a night. Just like that. No argument, no protest. I got in my car and locked the doors immediately. As I pulled out of the gravel lot, I looked in my rearview mirror. She was standing under the string lights watching me leave. But she was not alone. There was someone else standing a few feet behind her in the shadows. Tall still. I drove straight home. I sent my friends a long text when I got back, telling them everything. The next day, I ran a post in a local community group online. Someone warning about suspicious activity near that same lake, reports of people being approached late at night by a couple asking strange questions. I never matched with Ivy again. Her profile disappeared 2 days later. Sometimes I still think about how her face changed the second she realized someone was expecting me. Like I ruined a plan just by telling the truth. I knew the second my phone buzzed and his name disappeared from my Tinder messages that something was wrong. Like not just awkward date wrong. Something deeper. Something planned. It is a weird feeling when technology proves you are not imagining things. When you are staring at someone in real life and at the same time watching them erase the digital proof that you ever connected. His name was Leon. We matched after I had read his bio 3 times because it was short but strange. It said he liked quiet places, old architecture, and conversations that do not leave records. That last part felt artsy at the time, mysterious in a cool way. I hate that I thought that. We agreed to meet at this late-night coffee shop downtown that stays open until 2 a.m. It is one of those places with exposed brick walls and old bookshelves that are just decoration. People sit there with laptops pretending to write novels. It felt safe, bright enough, close to everything. I told my sister where I was going, sent her his profile. I always do that now. It has become automatic. He was already there when I walked in, sitting at a small table near the back but still in view of the counter. He looked like his photos. Tall, dark hair, clean cut, wearing a black jacket even though it was not that cold. He stood up when he saw me, polite, calm. We ordered drinks. Mine was $6. His was just black coffee. For the first 20 minutes, nothing felt off. He asked about my job. I told him I work in graphic design. He asked if I live alone. I said yes, but my building has security cameras and a doorman. That was not entirely true, but close enough. He listened closely to everything I said. Too closely, maybe. Like he was studying me instead of just talking. At one point, he asked if I had ever thought about how fragile digital connections are. How a match can just disappear, and it is like the person never existed. I laughed and said that is kind of the point sometimes. He smiled at that, but it was a small, tight smile. About 40 minutes in, I felt my phone buzz on the table between us. I glanced down automatically. Tinder notification. I frowned because I was not expecting one. I unlocked my phone. The conversation with Leon was gone. Completely gone. No chat history, no profile, nothing. I felt my stomach drop. I looked up at him. He was holding his phone in his hand now. He smiled. Then he said, "Now this part is private." My brain went blank for a second. I asked what he meant. He set his phone down slowly. He said, "Since we are not matched anymore, there is no record, no shared chat, no easy way to report or screenshot anything tied to his profile." I felt my pulse spike. I told him that was weird. He shrugged slightly and said it is just how the app works. I opened Tinder again to double check. His profile was gone. It was like he never existed on there. I asked why he unmatched me. He said because he preferred real connections, not digital ones. But the way he said it did not sound romantic. It sounded calculated. I picked up my phone and pretended to text my sister. Instead, I went to my recent screenshots folder and made sure I still had the one of his profile from earlier. I always screenshot before meeting someone. Habit. He noticed me on my phone. He asked if I was uncomfortable. I said a little. He leaned back in his chair and folded his hands together. Then he said that is good. My heart was pounding now. He started talking about how people rely too much on apps for safety, how they think screenshots and chat logs protect them. How once that digital thread is cut, it is just 2 strangers sitting in a room. I told him this was making me uneasy. He nodded calmly. Then he said we were just two people having coffee. No match. No map. No proof we ever met. The noise of the coffee shop felt distant suddenly. I glanced around. There were still people there. A couple studying at a table near the window. A guy with headphones typing on a laptop. It should have felt safe. But it did not. I asked him if he does this often. Unmatches mid-date. He smiled slightly and said only when he knows the date will continue somewhere else. I felt cold. I said I was not going anywhere else. He tilted his head and said we will see. My phone buzzed again. Not Tinder. A text from an unknown number. It was a photo. I opened it. It was me walking into the coffee shop 20 minutes earlier, taken from across the street. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I looked up at him slowly. He was watching my reaction closely. I asked if that was him. He did not answer directly. He just said it is important to know who you are meeting. I stood up abruptly. I said I was leaving. He did not try to stop me physically. He just stayed seated and watched me gather my things. As I turned toward the exit, he said something that made my skin crawl. He said, "Do not worry. I know where you live." My legs felt weak. I walked faster. Pushed through the glass door and out onto the sidewalk. The city felt too loud, too bright. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. A photo of my apartment building, taken during the day. I felt dizzy. I started walking quickly down the street without looking back. Another message. I prefer when it is private. I blocked the number instantly. I called my sister while walking. Told her everything. She told me to come straight to her place. I did not go home that night. The next day, I reported his Tinder account even though we were unmatched. I sent them the screenshots I had saved earlier. They responded saying they would investigate. 3 days later, I got an email saying the account had been removed. That did not make me feel better. Because a week after that, I was checking my mailbox in the lobby of my building. And inside my box was a small folded piece of paper. No envelope. Just paper. I unfolded it. It had one sentence written in neat handwriting. This part is still private. I moved out 2 months later. New building. Different area. I still screenshot every profile before meeting anyone. And I never ignore that uneasy feeling when someone talks too much about her racing records. I thought she was joking when she slid her phone across the table and told me to look at what I was going to say tomorrow. Like I actually laughed at first. It felt like some weird icebreaker. But then I saw my own name at the top of the screenshots. My profile picture. My exact way of typing. And that is when my stomach dropped so hard it felt like I missed a step on the stairs. Her name was Cassidy. We matched on a Sunday night when I was bored and half watching a movie. Her profile stood out because it was simple. No filters, no dramatic quotes. Just a couple of clear photos and a bio that said she liked patterns and predictable outcomes. I thought that was quirky, kind of cute in a nerdy way. We talked for a few days. Nothing intense. Just basic stuff. Favorite food, work schedules, random opinions. She was sharp. Fast replies. Sometimes she would finish my thoughts in a way that felt impressive instead of creepy. We agreed to meet at this indoor mini golf place that just opened in the mall. It sounded dumb but safe. Bright lights, families around, security cameras everywhere. I figured worst case scenario, it would just be awkward. I got there first and paid for 2 tickets. It was $22 total. The place smelled like carpet cleaner and popcorn from the theater next door. Neon obstacles glowing under black light. She walked in right on time. Jeans, oversized sweater, hair pulled back. She looked exactly like her photos. We started playing. At first it was light. She teased me about my terrible aim. I joked about her taking it too seriously. Normal date stuff. But there was something slightly off about her focus. She was not just playing. She was observing. Every time I reacted to something, laughed, got frustrated, she watched closely, like she was studying how I move. Halfway through the course, she asked what I usually do after a first date if I am not feeling it. I said I normally text the next day and say I had a good time but did not feel a connection. She nodded slowly, like she was checking the box. After we finished the last hole, we sat down at one of the small plastic tables near the arcade machines. Kids were running around. Everything felt normal. That is when she pulled out her phone and then unlocked it. She said she wanted to show me something funny. She turned the screen toward me. It was a screenshot of a Tinder conversation. At first, I did not recognize it. Then I saw my own profile picture at the top. My name. The messages were from me. But the timestamp said tomorrow. The conversation showed me texting her at 10:14 a.m. the next day, saying I had fun but did not feel a spark. Her reply in the screenshot was calm, polite, saying she understood. My chest tightened. I told her that was not real. She smiled slightly and said not yet. She swiped to the next screenshot. This one showed me sending another message later, apologizing if I let her on, explaining I just did not see it going further. It was written exactly how I usually text, same tone, same phrasing. I felt like I was looking at something that should not exist. I asked how she did that. She shrugged and said she pays attention. She said she has noticed patterns in how people behave after first dates, especially guys like me. I felt exposed in a way I could not explain. She zoomed in on the part where I supposedly apologized. Then she looked at me and asked if I wanted to rehearse my apology now. My brain went blank. I told her I had not even decided how I felt yet. She tilted her head and said statistically I would lose interest within 24 hours. She said my body language already showed it. I felt defensive. I said that was ridiculous. She just kept smiling calmly. She said we could save time if I just followed the script. I looked around the mini golf place. Kids laughing. Music playing softly. Nothing looked threatening. But sitting there across from her felt wrong. I asked why she would even make those screenshots. She said she liked being prepared. Prepared for what? She did not answer directly. Instead, she swiped again. This time the screenshot showed something different. It showed me sending a message that was not polite. It showed me saying something rude, dismissive. That is not something I would send. I told her that is not me. She said sometimes people surprise themselves. I felt a cold wave run through me. I asked if she faked those. She said she predicted them. Then she leaned forward slightly and lowered her voice. She said if I follow the polite version, everything stays simple. But if I send something like the other one, she would not take it well. My heart was pounding now. I said I was not planning on sending anything rude. She nodded and said good. Then she said she does not like being embarrassed. I swallowed hard. She locked her phone and slipped it back into her pocket like nothing weird had just happened. The rest of the date felt like walking through fog. She kept acting normal, asking about my hobbies, joking lightly. But every time I answered, I wondered how she was storing that information, how she was building the next script. After about 15 more minutes, I said I should head out. She nodded calmly. As we walked toward the exit, she asked what time I usually wake up. I said around 9. She smiled slightly and said that lines up. I asked what that meant. She said nothing. In the parking lot, she met me briefly. Then she said she would wait for my message tomorrow. I got in my car feeling like I had just stepped out of something unreal. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, at 9:58 a.m., my phone buzzed. Tinder notification. Message from Cassidy. I froze before opening it. When I did, my stomach dropped. It was a screenshot. The exact one she showed me. The one of me sending the polite rejection. But the timestamp was now current. 10:14 a.m. I had not sent anything yet. I checked our chat. There was no message from me. Just her screenshot. And below it, a single line. Ready when you are. My hands were shaking. I typed a simple message saying I had a good time. I stopped there. Did not mention connection. Did not apologize. I sent it. A few seconds later, she replied with another screenshot. This one new. It showed a different version of the conversation. One where I agreed to see her again. And below that screenshot, she wrote that version works better. I stared at my phone feeling trapped. I blocked her immediately. Deleted Tinder right after. For a week, nothing happened. Then one night, I was scrolling through my photo gallery looking for something unrelated. And between two random pictures, there was an image I did not recognize. It was a screenshot of a text conversation between me and an unknown number. In it, I was apologizing for something I do not remember doing. The timestamp was dated 3 days in the future. I knew it was going to be a weird night when he checked Tinder before even saying hi. Like I had just walked up to the table and was already staring at his phone, thumb dragging down the screen over and over, refreshing. Not texting, not typing, just refreshing. I almost turned around right then, but I didn't want to seem dramatic. His name was Ryan. We matched 3 days before. His profile was simple. 2 photos. One smiling in front of a mountain, one in a kitchen holding a pan like he was proud of cooking something. His bio said he liked puzzles and unpredictable outcomes. I remember thinking that sounded harmless, kind of nerdy. We agreed to meet at this small rooftop bar on top of a parking garage downtown. Not fancy, just some metal tables, string lights, and a bar cart with basic drinks. You could see the whole city from up there. I liked it because it felt open. Hard for anyone to corner you. I got there a little late because traffic was bad. When I stepped onto the rooftop, I saw him immediately. He was sitting alone at a table near the edge, phone in his hand, refreshing Tinder over and over like he was waiting for something to update. I walked up and said, "Hey." He looked up quickly, almost startled, like he forgot I was real. He smiled, but it looked forced. He stood up, shook my hand awkwardly, then sat back down and immediately looked at his phone again. I asked if everything was okay. He said, "Yeah, just checking something." We ordered drinks. Mine was $11. His was a beer. For the first few minutes, conversation was stiff but normal. He asked about my job. I told him I work in marketing and mostly live in my apartment with my cat and too many plants. He nodded but kept glancing down at his phone. Every time it buzzed or lit up, his eyes snapped to it. I tried to joke about it, that he seemed popular. He laughed nervously and said not exactly. Then he refreshed Tinder again. I could see the screen from where I was sitting. He was not in our chat. He was on his profile page. Refresh, refresh, refresh. I asked what he was looking for. He hesitated. Then he leaned forward slightly and lowered his voice. He said he was waiting for it to change. I asked what would change. He did not answer clearly, just kept refreshing. After about 10 minutes of this, I started feeling uncomfortable. The rooftop was not crowded, maybe 4 other tables occupied, soft music playing from a speaker near the bar cart, city noise below us. It should have felt relaxed. But his energy was tense, like he was waiting for a test result. Then he said something that made my stomach twist. He said I was not reacting like the others. I blinked. I asked what he meant. He shook his head quickly and said nothing. Then he refreshed again. I asked who the others were. He looked at me for a long second. Then he said previous dates. My heart started beating faster. I tried to keep my voice steady and asked reacting to what. He stared at his phone, thumb hovering over the screen. Then he turned it slightly toward me. His Tinder profile was open, but something was different. Under his bio, there was a new line of text. Currently testing response. I frowned. I asked if that was always there. He shook his head. He refreshed again. The text changed. Monitoring. My skin felt cold. I told him this was not funny. He looked genuinely confused. He said it usually updates faster. I asked what updates faster. He swallowed and said the reaction. I felt like I was in the middle of something I did not understand. He started whispering more to himself than to me, saying it should have triggered by now. I asked what should have. He looked up at me with wide eyes. He said fear. My chest tightened instantly. I pushed my chair back slightly. He noticed. He refreshed again. The profile text changed. No spike detected. I felt dizzy. I asked if he was messing with his bio manually. He held up his other hand to show he was not typing, just refreshing. I leaned forward and grabbed his wrist gently, told him to stop. He froze for a second. Then he slowly turned the phone fully toward me. This time, the text under his bio said subject remains calm. My pulse was pounding in my ears. I asked what subject. He looked at me like I was not getting something obvious. He said you. I stood up immediately. He looked panicked. He refreshed again. The text changed. Movement detected. I stepped back further from the table. People at the other tables started glancing over because my chair scraped loudly against the concrete floor. He stood up too. He said this is not how it usually goes. I asked what usually happens. He swallowed hard. He said they had scared sooner. They start asking questions. They leave. I said I am leaving. He shook his head quickly and said wait. He refreshed again. The text changed. Escalation required. I felt a rush of adrenaline hit me all at once. I turned toward the stairs that led down from the rooftop. He grabbed my arm lightly. Not aggressive, just desperate. He whispered again that I was not reacting like the others. I pulled my arm free. I told him to stay away from me. He looked down at his phone again. Refreshed. The text now said subject exiting. I ran down the stairs. My heart felt like it was going to explode. As I reached the lower level of the parking garage, my phone buzzed. Tinder notification. I stopped for half a second and opened it. It was his profile. Updated. Test inconclusive. I felt sick. I got to my car and locked the doors immediately. I looked up toward the rooftop edge. He was standing there, small figure against the city lights, staring down at the parking lot. My phone buzzed again. Another Tinder notification. Profile updated. New subject needed. I deleted Tinder right there in the driver's seat. Blocked him. Reported the account. 2 days later, I read a post in a local forum about a guy on Tinder whose bio kept changing during dates. Women describing feeling like they were part of some experiment. The account name was different, but the photos were the same. I still think about how calm I was compared to the others. And I wonder what escalation required would have meant if I stayed. I used to joke that Tinder felt like a broken slot machine. You pull down, swipe, 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 and hope something decent lines up. Most of the time is random. Faces blur together. Bios repeat. Nothing sticks. So when she opened our date by asking if I believed in fate, I almost laughed. I thought she was just being dramatic. Her name was Leela. We matched on a Thursday night after I had deleted and re-downloaded the app out of boredom. Again, I had seen her before. I was sure of it. Her face felt familiar. Dark curls, serious eyes, slight smirk in every photo. Her bio said she believed in patterns. That was it. When we matched, she messaged first. She said it finally happened. I asked what did. She said we were meant to match. I thought she was flirting. We agreed to meet at a bookstore cafe on the edge of town. It is one of those places with secondhand shelves lining the walls and small wooden tables crammed between them. Smells like paper and coffee all the time. I liked it because it felt calm and public. I got there first and picked a table near the back, but still visible from the counter. Habit. Always sit where someone can see you. She walked in 5 minutes later. She looked exactly like her pictures. Maybe even better. She had this steady way of walking, like she knew exactly where she was going. She sat down and smiled like we were already in on a secret together. We ordered drinks. Mine was $5. Hers was tea. For the first 10 minutes, it was normal. Small talk. Work. Hobbies. I told her I work remote and live alone in a small apartment downtown. She asked which building. I gave a vague answer. Then she leaned forward slightly and asked if I believed in fate. I shrugged and said not really. More like coincidence and algorithms. She smiled at that. Then she said I had been her top suggestion 3 times in a row. I blinked. I asked what she meant. She pulled out her phone and opened Tinder. She showed me her screen. Under the section where it sometimes highlights a profile with a little star, my face was there. Top pick. She swiped back to older screenshots. There were 3 of them. All from different days. all showing my profile as her top suggestion. I felt a weird twist in my stomach. I joked that maybe the app just thought we would get along. She shook her head slowly. She said it does not work like that. She explained how top suggestions are usually based on activity patterns and mutual swipes. She said she had deleted and reinstalled Tinder twice in the past month. Each time, within minutes, my profile was shown as her top pick. I tried to laugh it off again. I said maybe we just live close. She tilted her head and said that is the strange part. She said she had changed her location settings each time, once to a neighboring city, once to a town almost 40 minutes away, and still my profile appeared. My chest felt tight. I told her maybe it was a glitch. She said she thought so too. So she tested it. That word made my stomach drop. She said she made a fake account with different interests, different age range, different photos. And still, within a day, my profile was suggested. I felt exposed in a way I could not explain. I asked how that was possible. She smiled faintly. She said that is why she believes in patterns. I asked what kind of pattern this was. She leaned closer and lowered her voice slightly. She said maybe we are being pushed together. I forced a small laugh and said by who? She did not answer directly. Instead, she asked if I had ever noticed the same profile showing up repeatedly even after swiping left. I paused, because I had, a few times, faces that reappeared days later. I always thought it was just the app recycling profiles. She watched my reaction closely. Then she said she had swiped left on me the first 2 times. I frowned. I asked why. She said she was not sure about me yet, but I kept coming back. She said the 3rd time, she decided to swipe right because she wanted to see if it would finally stop. It did not stop. She said after we matched, she deleted the app again out of curiosity, reinstalled it the next day, and my profile was still her top suggestion, even though we were already matched. That made no sense. I told her that is impossible. She said she knows. She showed me another screenshot. This one taken after we matched. My profile was still marked as her top pick, even though normally matched profiles do not appear there. I felt my pulse in my throat. I asked if she had edited those screenshots. She looked offended. She said she does not fake data. The way she said it felt wrong. Too precise. I leaned back in my chair and looked around the bookstore cafe. People reading quietly. Soft music playing. Nothing unusual. But sitting there felt like something invisible was closing in. I asked why she wanted to meet me then. She said she needed to see if the pattern meant something. I asked what it could mean. She looked at me for a long second. Then she said maybe the system already decided. Decided what? She did not answer that either. Instead, she asked what time I usually log onto Tinder. I told her it varies. She nodded slowly and said that matches the data. I felt like I was being analyzed. I asked what data. She hesitated. Then she admitted she had tracked the times my profile showed up. She kept notes. Dates, times, locations, she said. I felt a cold wave run through me. She pulled out a small notebook from her bag. Actual paper. She flipped it open. My name was written on the top of a page. Under it, a list of dates and times. My throat went dry. I asked why she would do that. She said because patterns are rarely random. I stood up abruptly. I told her this was too much. She looked genuinely confused. She said I was reacting differently than expected. That line hit me hard. I asked what she expected. She said curiosity, not fear. My heart was pounding. I said I was leaving. She did not try to stop me. She just watched calmly as I grabbed my jacket. As I walked toward the exit, she called out one last thing. She said, "You will see me again on your screen." I did not respond. I got to my car and sat there breathing hard. I opened Tinder out of instinct. Her profile was still matched with mine. I went to unmatch her, but her name was gone, like she had already done it. I deleted the app right there. 2 days later, I got bored and reinstalled it. I told myself it was dumb to let one weird date ruin it. When the app loaded, it showed me my top pick for the day. It was her. Even though we had unmatched. Even though I had deleted everything. Her bio had changed. It now said patterns always repeat. I deleted the app again. But sometimes late at night, when I unlock my phone and swipe absent-mindedly, I swear I see her face flash on the screen for half a second before it loads something else. Like the algorithm is still trying. I thought my phone was overheating or something. That is the only reason I opened Tinder again that night. It had frozen twice already while I was swiping, and the screen flickered like it was trying to load something it was not supposed to show. I remember being annoyed more than anything. I had no idea that glitch would be the last normal moment I had for a while. I was lying on my couch in my apartment, lights off except for the Tib playing some random show in the background. I live alone on the 4th floor of an older building. Thin walls, creaky floors, nothing fancy, just quiet most nights. I had been swiping mindlessly for maybe 20 minutes. Nothing interesting, just the usual faces and bios that all blur together. Then the app froze completely. The screen went black for a second. Then it reloaded, but not to the swipe screen. Instead, there was a black background with a red circle in the center. Inside the circle was a timer. 0:59:58. And above it, in white text, was my name. It did not say first name only like my profile. It showed my full name. I stared at it thinking it was some weird ad or promotion. But there was no branding. No explanation. Just the countdown ticking down. 0:59:55. 0:59:54. My heart started beating faster. I tapped the screen. Nothing happened. No back button. No swipe. Just the timer. I closed the app completely and reopened it. Normal swipe screen. I let out a breath I did not realize I was holding. I told myself it was a glitch. Maybe some developer test screen that accidentally flashed. I swiped a few more profiles, trying to forget it. Then it froze again. Black screen. Red circle. This time, the timer said 0:58:12, like it had kept counting even while the app was closed. My full name still above it. I felt cold all over. I tried to screenshot it. The screenshot came out completely black. I tried again. Black. The timer kept ticking. 0:58:03. 0:58:02. I forced the app closed again and turned my phone off completely. Waited 30 seconds. Turned it back on. I did not open Tinder right away. I sat there staring at my home screen, debating whether to just delete the app. But curiosity won. I opened it again. Normal. No timer. I went to my messages. Normal. I almost laughed at myself. Then a notification popped up at the top. Match expires soon. I frowned because that was not a normal Tinder notification. I tapped it. Black screen. Red circle. 0:56:47. My name above it. My hands started shaking. I looked around my apartment like someone might be watching me through the walls. That is when I noticed something else. Below the timer, in small text, it now said active. Active where? I did not know. I tried to log out of my account. The settings page would not load. Every time I tapped something, it sent me back to the countdown. I grabbed my laptop and logged into Tinder through the browser. It worked normally. No timer. No red circle. My profile looked normal. I almost felt relieved. Then my phone buzzed again. I looked down. Tinder notification. Time adjusted. I opened it. Black screen. Red circle. 0:54:19. But now there was a small map icon blinking under the timer. I tapped it. For a split second, it showed a map of my area. A small blue dot marking my apartment. And a red circle around it. The same red circle as the timer. I felt dizzy. I closed the app again and turned off my phone completely. This time, I left it off. I walked to my window and looked down at the street. Nothing unusual. Just parked cars and a street light flickering. I told myself maybe my phone had malware. Maybe someone hacked it. I turned it back on because I needed to call my friend. Before I could open contacts, the screen lit up. Tinder notification. 30 minutes remaining. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I opened the app again, even though I did not want to. Black screen. Red circle. 0:29:58. My name above it. But now under active, it said visible. I felt like I was going to throw up. Visible to who? I went to the App Store and tried to uninstall Tinder. The uninstall button was grayed out. I had never seen that before. I restarted my phone again. When it powered back on, the first thing on the screen was Tinder already open. Black background. Red circle. 0:27:41. This time, beneath the timer, new text appeared. Preparing match. I whispered to myself that this was not real. I looked at my apartment door. It was locked. I double-checked it anyway. My phone buzzed again. Match assigned. The timer dropped suddenly. 0:10:00. I felt a rush of panic. I ran to my window again and looked down at the street. A car had pulled up. Black sedan. Engine running. Headlights off. I told myself it was just someone parking. My phone vibrated in my hand. Profile unlocked. Against my better judgment, I tapped the screen. The black background faded into a profile. No name. No photos. Just a blank gray silhouette. And under it, a single line. Distance 0 miles. My throat closed up. I refreshed. Distance 0 miles. The black sedan outside turned off its engine. My phone buzzed again. Chat available. A message appeared instantly. On my screen. No notification sound. Just text. Ready when you are. I backed away from the window slowly. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I typed nothing. I did not respond. The timer continued ticking in the corner. 07:12. 07:11. I dropped my phone on the couch and ran to the kitchen, grabbed the biggest knife I had. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. Another buzz. New message. We see you. I felt my knees go weak. I crouched below the window, heart racing. The timer hit 05:00. Then suddenly changed to 02:00. Like something had accelerated. My phone started vibrating nonstop. Notification after notification. Match approaching. Match nearby. Match confirmed. I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment. Slow. Measured. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. The timer hit 0:10. 0:09. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. 0:05. Someone tried the handle. It did not open. 0:02. 0:01. The timer hit 0. My phone screen went black. Then normal. Home screen. No Tinder open. No notifications. Silence. I stayed there on the kitchen floor for what felt like hours. Eventually, I stood up and checked the door. No one there. I looked out the window. The black setting was gone. I finally managed to uninstall Tinder the next morning. It worked like normal. No glitch. No timer. But sometimes late at night, when my phone screen lights up randomly, I see a faint red circle reflection before it fully wakes. Like something is still counting down. I did not realize I was being evaluated until she thanked me for being cooperative. That word just landed wrong. Nobody uses cooperative on a date unless something else is going on. Up until that moment, I thought it was just another slightly awkward dinner with someone I matched with at 1 a.m. because I could not sleep. Her name was Dana. We matched on a random weeknight. Her profile was simple but intense. No group photos. Just 3 clear shots of her looking straight into the camera. Her bio said she appreciated structure and clear expectations. I did not think much of it. I just thought she liked things organized. We decided to meet at a small Italian restaurant tucked between a pharmacy and a hardware store. Not trendy. Just quiet and dim with fake candles on the tables. The kind of place where couples celebrate anniversaries or families come for birthdays. I got there a few minutes early and picked a table near the center. Visible from all angles. I always do that without thinking. She walked in exactly on time. No hesitation. She spotted me immediately and walked over with this calm, focused expression like she had already mapped out the whole night. She looked good. Black dress, simple necklace, hair pulled back neatly. Nothing flashy. We ordered dinner. I got pasta. She got grilled chicken and a salad. The total came to $38 before tip. Conversation started normal enough. She asked about my job. I told her I work in tech support and mostly live alone in a small apartment downtown. She asked what floor. I told her 5th. She nodded like she was noting it mentally. She asked about my hobbies. I told her I run sometimes and play video games. She asked what days I usually run. That question felt oddly specific. I said it varies. Throughout the meal, she kept doing this subtle thing. She would glance at her phone, not typing, just looking at the screen for a second, then setting it down again. I figured maybe she was checking the time. After we finished our main dishes, the waiter came to clear the plates and asked if we wanted dessert. I was about to say no. She said yes immediately. She ordered tiramisu. Then she looked at me and said thank you for being cooperative so far. I laughed awkwardly because I thought she was joking. But she did not laugh. She just held my gaze steadily. I asked what she meant. She said most people push back at some point. My stomach tightened. I asked push back against what? She shrugged slightly and said against direction. That word stuck in my head. Direction. I asked what direction. She said she prefers dates that follow a certain flow. Predictable steps. Appetizer. Main course. Dessert. Exit. I tried to smile and said that sounds normal. She tilted her head and said you would be surprised. The waiter brought the tiramisu and 2 forks even though I did not order any. She slid 1 fork toward me. I said I was full. She said it is polite to participate. That word again. Cooperative. I felt this subtle pressure building. I took a small bite just to keep things smooth. She watched closely. Like she was measuring my reaction. I asked if she plans all her dates this way. She nodded. She said she likes to know what comes next. I asked what comes next tonight. She paused for a second. Then she said, "We leave at 9:42 p.m. I glanced at the clock on the wall. 9:31 p.m. I felt a chill run through me. I asked why 9:42 specifically. She said, "Timing matters." My heart started beating faster. I asked what happens at 9:42. She smiled faintly and said, "We transition." Transition to what? She did not answer that directly. Instead, she asked if I had told anyone where I was. I said, "Yes, my friend knows." She nodded slowly. She asked if that friend expects a check-in. I said maybe. She took another bite of dessert calmly. Then she said that complicates things slightly. My chest felt tight. I asked what things. She leaned back in her chair and studied me for a long second. Then she said most men do not mention telling anyone. I forced a smile and said safety first. She nodded but did not smile back. The clock ticked to 9:40 p.m. She finished the last bite of tiramisu. Then she wiped her hands carefully with a napkin. 9:41 p.m. She placed $40 on the table without looking at the bill. 9:42 p.m. She stood up. She said, "It is time." My body felt heavy. I stood too, almost automatically. She walked toward the exit without waiting to see if I followed. I did. The air outside felt cooler than I expected. The parking lot was half empty. Streetlights buzzing softly overhead. She stopped near my car. Then she looked at me and said, "You have done very well so far." My pulse was pounding in my ears. I asked what that meant. She said, "Some men argue. Some refuse dessert. Some leave early." I swallowed hard. She stepped a little closer. She said she appreciates compliance. Compliance. That word hit harder than cooperative. I took a small step back. She noticed. She tilted her head slightly like she was recalculating. Then she asked if I would mind driving somewhere quieter. I said no immediately. Her expression shifted for the first time all night. Not angry? Just disappointed. She said that is where things usually continue. I asked continue how. She did not answer. Instead, she glanced at her phone. Then she looked past me toward the far end of the parking lot. I followed her gaze. There was a van parked near the edge, engine off, windows dark. My heart felt like it dropped into my stomach. I asked if that was hers. She did not respond directly. She just said that part is optional. Optional. I felt a surge of adrenaline. I told her I needed to leave. She did not try to grab me. She did not raise her voice. She just watched me walk to my car. As I unlocked the door, she said one last thing. She said not everyone makes it past dessert. My hands were shaking as I got inside. I locked the doors immediately. I looked up. She was standing under the streetlight watching calmly. The van at the far end of the lot turned on its engine slowly. I started my car and drove out without looking back again. In my rearview mirror, I saw the van pull out a few seconds later. It did not follow me. It turned the opposite direction. I blocked her number before I even reached the highway. 2 days later, I read an article about a man who disappeared after a dinner date at that same restaurant. Last seen leaving around 9:45 p.m. Sometimes when I think about that night, what stays with me is not the van or the timing. It is the way she said thank you. Like I had passed the first stage of something. And if I had been just a little more cooperative, dessert would not have been the end. I should have trusted the way my stomach dropped when he said that. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just calm and close to my ear, like he was explaining the rules of a board game. If you leave before I am ready, it resets. At first, I did not even understand what he meant. I thought maybe he was joking about the date going badly, but the look on his face told me it was not a joke. His name was Marcus. We matched after I had sworn I was taking a break from Tinder. His profile was simple. One picture at a museum, one on a hiking trail, one sitting at a desk with a book open in front of him. His bio said he liked systems and hated unfinished processes. I remember thinking that sounded organized, stable. We talked for about a week before meeting. He was polite, asked thoughtful questions, never rushed anything. He suggested we meet at a board game cafe in an older part of town, the kind of place with shelves of games lining the walls and big wooden tables for groups. It felt safe enough, public, busy. I told my roommate where I was going, sent her his profile, told her I would text when I got back, standard routine. When I walked into the cafe, he was already there setting up a game at a corner table. Not completely hidden, but slightly separated from the main crowd. He stood up and smiled when he saw me. He looked exactly like his photos. Neat, calm, steady. We ordered drinks. Mine was $7. His was just water. He suggested we played a strategy game that involved completing objectives before the other person. I did not know the rules, but he said he would guide me. The first half hour was normal enough. He explained the game carefully. Too carefully, like he enjoyed having control over the pace. He would pause and watch my face as he described each step. I tried to keep things light, joked about how competitive he seemed. He smiled, but did not laugh. As the game went on, I noticed he kept checking his phone. Not messaging, just opening Tinder and refreshing. I asked if he was expecting a message. He said no. He said he was checking progress. I frowned. Progress of what? He did not answer directly. Instead, he asked how long I usually stay on first dates. I said it depends on how it is going. He nodded slowly. Then he said most people try to leave around the same time. I felt a small warning go off in my head. I asked what he meant. He leaned back slightly and looked at the board between us. He said there's a point where the pattern becomes predictable. I did not like the way he said pattern. I checked the time on my phone. 8:52 p.m. We had been there about an hour. I said I might head out soon because I had an early morning. That is when he leaned closer. Close enough that I could feel his breath near my ear. And he said, if you leave before I am ready, it resets. I froze. I asked what resets. He leaned back again calmly. He tapped his phone screen and turned it slightly toward me. On his Tinder profile, under his bio, there was a small line of text that had not been there before. Cycle incomplete. I felt my chest tighten. I asked if that was a joke. He shook his head slowly. He said every time someone leaves early, the system resets. I asked what system. He said the one that matches us. I felt dizzy. He explained it like he was talking about something normal. He said he has matched with me 4 times. I stared at him. I told him that was not true. He said it was. He said the first time, I unmatched after a short conversation. The second time, I stopped replying. The third time, I agreed to meet but canceled. I genuinely did not remember that. He said each time, after the connection ended, he would delete the app. Reinstall it. And within a day, my profile would be at the top again. I swallowed hard. He said tonight was the 4th cycle. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the calf noise around us. I told him that is just how Tinder works sometimes. He shook his head. He said not like this. He refreshed the app again. Under his profile, the text changed. Final attempt. I felt like I was going to throw up. I pushed my chair back slightly. He noticed immediately. His expression shifted from calm to tense. He said, "You are doing it again." I said, "Doing what?" He said, "Preparing to leave before completion." Completion of what? He did not answer clearly. Instead, he said, "If you leave before I am ready, it resets and we start over." I felt trapped in a way that did not make sense logically. We were in a public place. People laughing at other tables. Dice rolling. Music playing softly. But his focus on me felt heavy. I told him I did not want to be part of whatever this was. He nodded slowly. Then he said, "That is what you said last time." My skin felt cold. I asked what happened last time. He smiled faintly. He said, "You left at 9:03 p.m. I glanced at the clock on the wall. 9:01 p.m. My pulse spiked. He refreshed Tinder again. The text changed. Almost. I stood up abruptly. I said I was leaving. He grabbed my wrist lightly. Not painfully. Just firm. He leaned closer again and repeated that if I leave before he is ready, it resets. I pulled my hand free. I said I do not care. He looked at his phone again. The text shifted. Resetting. My heart slammed against my ribs. I turned and walked quickly toward the exit. I did not look back. As I reached the door, my phone buzzed. Tinder notification. New match. My stomach dropped. I opened it against my better judgment. It was him. New profile picture. Slightly different angle. Bio unchanged. But under it, a small line of text. Cycle 5. I felt dizzy. I blocked the profile instantly. Deleted Tinder in the parking lot. When I got home, I told my roommate everything. She said, maybe he was just messing with me. Maybe. But 2 nights later, curiosity got the better of me. I reinstalled Tinder. I told myself I just wanted to check. When the app loaded, the first profile that appeared was his. New photo again. Bio the same. And beneath it, "Ready when you are." I have not re-downloaded the app since. But sometimes when I unlock my phone at night, I swear I see the Tinder logo flicker for a split second before my home screen appears. Like something is waiting for the cycle to continue. I used to think living alone was a flex. My own space, my own rules, no one touching my food in the fridge. That night was the first time it felt like a weakness. The first time it sounded like something someone could use against me. Her name was Braille. We matched on a random Sunday afternoon when I was half bored and half avoiding laundry. Her profile was clean and simple. A couple of selfies, one hiking picture, one at coffee shop. Her bio said she liked independence and quiet homes. I did not think anything of it. I liked quiet too. We talked for about a week. She asked normal stuff at first. Job, hobbies, what I do on weekends. Then she started asking more specific things, like if I had roommates, if I had pets, if I worked from home. I told her I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment. I work hybrid, but mostly from home. No pets. She responded with a smiley face and said she appreciated honesty. We agreed to meet at a small late-night diner near my place. The kind open 24 hours with bright lights and cracked vinyl booths. I liked it because it was close and public. I got there first and took a booth near the window. From where I was sitting, I could see the parking lot and the street beyond it. She walked in right on time. Dark jeans, light sweater, hair down. She looked exactly like her photos. Maybe even better in person. We ordered simple stuff, burgers and fries. Total was around $32. Nothing fancy. At first, The conversation felt normal. She asked about my job. I asked about hers. She said she worked remote too. Freelance writing. She asked again about my apartment. What floor I was on. If there was a doorman. If the building had cameras. I laughed lightly and asked if she was planning a visit already. She smiled and said she just liked knowing the environment. About halfway through the meal, she leaned back and said something that made my chest tighten. She said she only matches with men who live alone. I blinked. I asked why. She shrugged slightly and said it simplifies things. I asked, simplifies what? She looked directly at me and said logistics. My stomach felt uneasy. I tried to keep it light and joked that living alone is expensive and not that glamorous. She nodded, but did not smile. Then she asked if anyone would notice if I stopped replying tonight. I froze. I asked what she meant. She clarified like it was a normal question. She asked if I had friends expecting a text, family who checks in, coworkers who would call if I missed work tomorrow. My heart started pounding faster. I said, yeah, my sister usually texts me in the morning. That was partly true. She tilted her head slightly and asked if she would worry right away or assume I was busy. I felt a cold wave move through me. I asked why she was asking that. She said she likes to understand risk. Risk of what? She did not answer directly. Instead, she took a slow bite of her food and watched me. The diner around us was quiet, but not empty. A couple at the counter. A truck driver at a table near the back. I should have felt safe. But I did not. I said I always check in with someone after dates. She nodded slowly. She asked how specific I am when I check in. I said I usually send a name and location. She studied my face carefully like she was trying to decide if I was telling the truth. Then she asked if anyone had my live location right now. I lied and said yes. Her expression changed slightly. Not angry. Just disappointed. She said that complicates things. That word again. Complicates. My pulse was pounding in my ears. I asked what things. She leaned forward a little and lowered her voice. She said she has a rule. She said she does not waste time on men who are heavily connected. I felt like I was in a job interview for something I did not apply for. I asked what happens to the ones who are not. She looked at me for a long second. Then she smiled faintly and said they are easier. Easier how? She did not respond. Instead, she asked if I drove here alone. I said yes. She asked where I parked. I gestured toward the lot. She glanced out the window. Then she said she parked a little further down the street. I followed her gaze. I did not see her car. The conversation felt stuck in this strange tension. I checked the time on my phone. 10:18 p.m. I told her I had an early morning. She nodded calmly. Then she said if you stopped replying tonight, how long would it take before someone came looking? The way she said it was not curious. It was measured. Like she was typing something in her head. I told her my sister would call if I did not respond by morning. She asked what time that would be. I said around 9. She did the math silently. Then she said that is a decent window. My chest tightened. I pushed my plate away. I said I needed to go. She did not try to stop me. She just watched calmly as I stood up. As I reached for my wallet, she said one last thing. She said most men say no one would notice for at least a day. My heart was racing. I paid the bill and walked out into the parking lot. The air felt colder than before. I scanned the lot quickly. My car was where I left it. As I unlocked the door, my phone buzzed. Tinder notification. New message from Brielle. I looked back toward the diner. She was still inside, sitting in the booth, watching through the window. I opened the message. It said, "Thank you for clarifying." My hands were shaking. Another message came through instantly. Wrong answer. I did not reply. I got into my car and locked the doors. As I pulled out of the lot, I noticed a dark sub parked at the far end with its headlights off. As I drove past, the engine turned on. It did not follow me. It turned the opposite direction. I drove straight home and locked my door behind me. I texted my sister immediately and told her everything. She told me to block her. I did. 2 days later, curiosity got the better of me, and I re-downloaded Tinder just to check. Her profile was gone, but in my messages, there was a new match. No photo. No bio. Just a blank profile. The first message read, "Do you still live alone?" I deleted the app again. Now, every time someone asks about my living situation on a date, my chest tightens a little. Because I know for some people, that answer is not just small talk. I knew I messed up the second he said that was not the way, not in a helpful tone. Not like someone who just knows the neighborhood better. It was the way he said it, certain, annoyed, like I had gone off script. His name was Jared. We matched on a random Wednesday night when I was laying in bed scrolling instead of sleeping. His profile looked harmless. A couple of gym photos, one with a dog, one blurry group shot at what looked like a birthday party. His bio said he liked routines and late-night walks. That last part should have made me pause. We talked for a few days. He was consistent, not overly intense. Asked about my job, my hobbies, what area I live in. I kept it vague, just said near downtown. He suggested we grab coffee at a small place 2 blocks from my apartment. I almost said no because it was too close to home, but I figured public place for the evening, what could go wrong? I told my best friend where I was going, sent her his profile. Standard habit. The coffee shop was small and crowded. Warm lighting, exposed brick walls, the usual. We found a table near the back. He looked like his photos. Tall, solid build, neat hair. He smiled easily. Conversation started normal. We talked about work. He asked what floor my apartment was on. I told him 4th. He asked if there was an elevator. I said yes. At first, I thought he was just making small talk. But he kept asking little details. How long I had lived there. Whether the front door locks automatically. If there were cameras in the lobby. I joked that he sounded like he was casing the place. He laughed, but did not deny it. After about an hour, I said I should head home because I had an early morning. He immediately stood up and said he would walk me. I told him that was not necessary. It was literally 2 blocks. He insisted, said it would make him feel better. I did not want to argue, so I agreed. It was public, busy street, nothing to worry about. We stepped outside into the cool air, streetlights flickering on as the sky got darker. We started walking. The most direct route to my building is straight down one street, then a left turn at the pharmacy. But as we approached the corner, I decided to take a different route, one that loops around the block and comes from the backside of my building. I sometimes take it when I want a few extra minutes outside. I turned right instead of going straight. That is when he stopped walking for a split second. Then he said that was not the way. My heart skipped. I said there are multiple ways. He smiled, but it looked tight. He said, "No, your building is straight ahead, then left." I felt my stomach twist. I asked how he knew that. He shrugged and said I mentioned the pharmacy earlier. I did not remember mentioning it. We kept walking, but he subtly steered us back toward the original route. I slowed down. I said I prefer this way. He looked at me with this strange expression, like I had broken a rule. Then he said it is better to stick to the expected path. Expected by who? He did not answer. Instead, he asked why I changed direction. I told him I just felt like it. He said that makes things unpredictable. My pulse started pounding. I laughed nervously and said it is just a walk. He nodded slowly. Then he said he had mapped it already. That word hit hard. Mapped. I asked what he meant. He said before the date, he walked around the area to get familiar with it. My chest tightened. I asked why he would do that. He said he likes to know the terrain. Terrain. Like we were in some kind of game. We reached the back alley that leads to my building's side entrance. I stopped walking. I told him I do not use this entrance. That was a lie. He looked confused for a second. Then he said you usually do. My heart felt like it dropped into my stomach. I asked what he meant by usually. He hesitated. Then he said he had seen me use it. I froze. I asked when. He shrugged slightly and said a few times. My throat went dry. I told him that is not possible. He looked at me like I was the one being unreasonable. Then he said, you always take this way when you are alone. My skin felt cold. I took a step back. He stepped forward slightly. Not aggressively. Just enough to close the gap. He said, you're changing the route tonight. I said yes. He looked genuinely frustrated. Then he said that resets the timing. I felt dizzy. I asked what timing. He did not answer directly. Instead, he glanced at his phone. I noticed for the first time that he had Tinder open. He refreshed it. I saw his profile screen flash. Under his bio, a small line of text appeared. Subject deviating. I felt like I was going to throw up. I asked if that was some kind of joke. He looked at me seriously and said it is not working like it should. I told him I was done. I turned and started walking back toward the main street. He grabbed my wrist lightly. Not hard, but firm. He said, if you leave before I am ready, it starts over. Those words again. Starts over. I pulled my hand free. I told him to stay away from me. A car drove past at that moment, headlights cutting through the alley. He stepped back slightly. I walked quickly toward the lit street. He followed but kept a small distance. As we reached the corner near the pharmacy, he said, you always turn left here. I did not. I crossed the street instead and headed toward a convenience store that was still open. He stopped on the sidewalk. I looked back once. He was standing there staring at me, phone in his hand. He refreshed the screen again. Even from across the street, I could see the red glow of Tinder's interface. My phone buzzed. Tinder notification. I had opened it while walking. New match. It was him. New profile photo. Slightly different haircut. Bio unchanged. But beneath it, a small line. Attempt 3. I blocked the profile immediately. Went inside the convenience store and stayed there for almost 30 minutes. When I finally walked home, I took a completely different route and kept checking behind me. I never saw him again in person. But 2 weeks later, I re-downloaded Tinder out of boredom. The first profile that popped up was his. Different name this time. Different photos. But the same eyes. And in the bio, one sentence. Stick to the expected path. I deleted the app for good after that. Now every time someone insists on walking me home, I think about that night. About how confident he was about my route. And how angry he looked when I changed it. I did not even finish my sentence before she disappeared from my screen. 1 second I was typing, the next her name vanished like it had never been there. No chat history, no profile, just gone. And she was still sitting right across from me, smiling like she had just flipped a switch. Her name was Kira. We matched on a random Friday night after I got back from work and decided I did not want to spend another weekend alone. Her profile was simple but intense. 3 photos, all with the same direct stare. Her bio said she believed honesty should come at the right time. I thought that sounded mature. Mysterious in a normal way. We talked for about 4 days before meeting. She was sharp, sarcastic, quick to respond. She asked normal stuff at first. What I do for work. If I live alone. What neighborhood I am in. I kept it vague but honest. I said I lived by myself in a small apartment near the river. She said she liked quiet buildings. We agreed to meet at a late-night ramen place downtown. It was small and crowded, tables close together, steam fogging up the windows. I liked it because it was public and loud enough that no one could whisper without being heard. She got there first, sitting at a 2-person table near the back wall. When I walked in, she looked up and smiled like she had been waiting for exactly that moment. She looked like her photos, maybe even more intense in person. Dark hair pulled back, sharp eyes, calm posture. We ordered food. Mine was $16. Hers was something similar. Conversation started easy. She asked about my job. I told her I work in finance. She asked if I work from home. I said sometimes. She kept watching my face carefully while I talked, not in a romantic way, more like she was analyzing how I react to certain topics. About 20 minutes in, she asked if I had ever deleted Tinder mid-conversation. I laughed and said, yeah, sometimes when things get weird. She smiled slightly. Then she asked if I ever screenshot conversations. I said sometimes, mostly for funny stuff. She nodded like she was checking something off in her head. We were halfway through our bowls when I started telling her a story about a bad date I had last year. I was mid-sentence, explaining how the girl had left early when my phone buzzed in my hand. Tinder notification. I glanced down automatically. Conversation ended. I frowned. I opened the app. Our entire chat was gone. Her profile gone. No match. I looked up at her. She was still sitting there calmly. She watched my reaction closely. Then she said, good. Now I can tell you the truth. My stomach dropped instantly. I asked why she unmatched me. She leaned back slightly and folded her hands on the table. She said because now there is no record. My chest tightened. I asked record of what? She said of this. She gestured between us. I felt the air in the restaurant get heavier even though nothing had changed. I told her that was weird. She shrugged. She said she prefers to separate the digital from the real. I asked what truth she wanted to tell me. She studied me for a long second. Then she said she has matched with me before. I froze. I said, no, you have not. She nodded slowly. She said 2 months ago. I said I would remember that. She said you did not. She said last time we met, it did not end well. My heart started pounding. I told her I have never met her before. She leaned forward slightly. Then she described the same raven place. The same table near the back wall. She described what I was wearing. Dark jacket, white shirt underneath. My throat went dry. I had worn that exact outfit tonight. I told her that was coincidence. She shook her head. She said last time you left early. I said I would remember something like that. She said you did not leave by choice. My hands felt numb. I asked what she meant. She glanced around the restaurant briefly, then back at me. She said the first time you were more trusting. You walked me home. I felt dizzy. I told her that never happened. She said it did. She described the path by the river near my apartment. The broken streetlight halfway down the block. That is real. I passed that streetlight almost every day. I felt like the ground was tilting. I asked how she knew that. She smiled faintly. She said because she has watched you. My heart slammed against my ribs. I pushed my bowl away. I said this is not funny. She nodded. She said it was not funny last time either. I asked what happened last time. She paused for a second. Then she said you did not make it to your door. I felt like I could not breathe. I looked around the restaurant. People laughing, eating, completely unaware. I asked why I would not remember that. She tilted her head slightly. Then she said because you always start over. My stomach dropped. She said when she unmatches, it resets. That word again. Resets. I asked what resets. She said the cycle. I felt I was stuck in some loop I did not know existed. I said I am leaving. She did not try to stop me. She just watched. As I stood up, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A photo. I opened it. It was me, walking along the river at night, wearing the same jacket, taken from behind. Time-stamped 2 months ago. My legs felt weak. I looked up at her. She was still sitting there calmly. She said, now do you remember? I shook my head. She said, you will. I backed away from the table. People were staring now because my chair scraped loudly against the floor. I walked toward the exit. My phone buzzed again. Another photo. Me standing outside my apartment building. Same night. I did not look back at her again. I stepped out into the cold air and walked quickly down the sidewalk. I did not go straight home. I went to a crowded bar and stayed there for over an hour. When I finally checked Tinder later that night out of pure fear, Her profile was nowhere to be found. I have not seen her again. But sometimes when I walk past that broken street light near my building, I get the strange feeling like I have stood there before in the exact same way, and that somewhere there was no record of it. I knew something was wrong before I even opened the message. My phone buzzed on the table between us, and he did not flinch. He did not look down. He just kept talking like nothing had happened, like he was waiting for me to notice. His name was Nolan. We matched on a random Monday night after I got home from work and decided I needed to get out more. His profile was simple. Clean-cut photos, one at a baseball game, one in a kitchen cooking something, one standing on a balcony with city lights behind him. His bio said he liked calm nights and disliked drama. That line makes me sick now. We agreed to meet at a small wine bar downtown. Not loud, not packed, just dim lights and soft music. I liked it because it felt grown up and safe, a place where no one would cause trouble. I told my sister where I was going and sent her his profile, standard routine. He was already there when I arrived. Sitting at a small table near the wall, he stood up when he saw me, smiled politely, pulled out my chair. Nothing felt off at first. We ordered drinks. Mine was $13. His was something dark red I did not recognize. Conversation started easy. He asked about my job. I told him I work in event planning. He asked if I live alone. I said yes, in a small apartment near downtown. He nodded like that information mattered. About 20 minutes in, I noticed he kept checking his phone. Not texting much, just glancing down at it and locking it again quickly. I assumed he was nervous. Then my phone buzzed on the table. Tinder notification. I frowned because he was literally sitting across from me. I picked up my phone and opened it. It was a message from him. Don't make a scene. My heart dropped instantly. I looked up at him. He was still mid-sentence about something random, smiling casually. His hands were resting on the table. No phone in sight. My throat went dry. I glanced down at the message again. Don't make a scene. Sent just now. I looked at his hands carefully. No movement. I asked if he just sent me something. He looked confused for a split second. Then he shook his head lightly and said no. I turned my phone toward him and showed the screen. His expression did not change much. He just glanced at it and then back at me. He said that was weird. My chest felt tight. I refreshed the chat. The message was still there. I looked around the bar. Other couples talking quietly. Bartender polishing glasses. Everything normal. I felt like I was the only one in some different version of the room. I asked him again if he was messing with me. He leaned back slightly and said, why would I do that? Then my phone buzzed again. Another message from him. Just relax. My heart started pounding in my ears. I looked at him. He was holding his wine glass now, taking a slow sip. Both hands visible. I felt dizzy. I typed back, who is this? Before I could hit send, another message appeared. I can see your hands shaking. I froze. My hands were shaking. I had not realized it until that moment. I looked up at him. He was staring directly at me now. Not smiling anymore. Just watching. I felt like I could not breathe. I asked if he was doing this. He did not answer directly. Instead, he leaned slightly closer and said softly that everything was fine. At the exact same moment, my phone buzzed again. Smile. I felt panic rising fast. I tried to keep my face neutral. I forced a small smile even though my chest felt tight. He nodded approvingly. Another message came through. Good. I felt trapped. I did not know if someone else in the room was watching me or if it was him somehow using a second device. I glanced under the table quickly. Nothing there. I looked toward the bar counter. Nothing unusual. My phone buzzed again. You can leave in 5 minutes. My heart slammed against my ribs. I looked up at him. He was talking casually about a trip he took last year. Like nothing was happening. I whispered that this was not funny. He tilted his head slightly. Then my phone buzzed again. 3 minutes. I felt cold all over. I considered standing up and yelling for help. But the last message had warned me not to make a scene. My brain was racing. I tried to think logically. Maybe someone hacked his account. Maybe someone was sitting behind me sending messages. I turned slightly in my chair and glanced around. No one was looking at me. Another buzz. 2 minutes. I could barely sit still. I felt like I was counting down to something I did not understand. He leaned closer slightly and said he hoped I was having a good time. My phone buzzed again. 1 minute. I swallowed hard. I asked him directly if he had access to my phone somehow. He smiled faintly and said that would be dramatic. Another buzz. Stand up now. I stared at the screen. I felt like if I did not follow it, something worse would happen. I slowly pushed my chair back and stood up. He looked up at me calmly. Then my phone buzzed again. Good girl. My stomach twisted. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. Instead, I said I needed to use the restroom. He nodded. My phone buzzed. Left hallway. I froze. There was a hallway to the left that led to the restrooms. My pulse was out of control. I took a step in that direction. My phone buzzed again. Don't run. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I forced them back. I walked down the hallway slowly. The restroom door was at the end. My phone buzzed again. Last stall. I pushed open the restroom door. Empty. I walked to the last stall. My hands shaking so bad I could barely lock the door. I looked at my phone. New message. Look up. My heart stopped for a second. I slowly tilted my head upward. Above the stall door, there was a small gap. And through that gap, I saw the top edge of a phone. Someone was holding it over the stall. My chest felt like it exploded. I screamed without thinking. The phone above the stall dropped out of view instantly. I rushed out of the stall and into the hallway. The restroom was empty. I ran back toward the main bar area. Nolan was still sitting at the table. Alone. Calm. His phone in his hand now. I stopped a few feet away from him. He looked up slowly. My phone buzzed one last time. Told you not to make a scene. I did not sit back down. I grabbed my bag and walked straight out of the bar without looking back. I blocked him immediately in the parking lot. Reported the account. 2 days later, I re-downloaded Tinder just to check. His profile was gone. But in my message list, there was a new match. No photo. No bio. Just one message waiting. Still dramatic. I deleted the app for good after that. I still think about that phone above the stall door sometimes. About how he never had to raise his voice. And how close I was to staying seated like nothing was wrong. I thought she was just being sarcastic at first. Like dark humor sarcastic. The kind of girl who makes jokes about true crime podcasts and serial killer documentaries. But when she turned her phone toward me and calmly asked which ending I preferred, I realized she was not joking at all. She was giving me options. Her name was Mona. We matched on a random Saturday afternoon when I was killing time before meeting friends. Her profile stood out because it was weirdly organized. 3 photos, all taken in different seasons, but then the same exact pose. Same angle, same half smile. Her bio said she believed every story has an ending, but not everyone gets to pick theirs. I remember thinking that was just poetic or something dramatic. We talked for a few days. She was calm, never over-texted, never double message. She asked interesting questions. What scares you more, losing control or losing time? Stuff like that. I answered casually because it felt like just conversation. We agreed to meet at a small late-night art gallery that doubles as a wine bar after 8 p.m. It was one of those trendy places with white walls and strange paintings that make no sense. Dim lighting, quiet music, people pretending to understand abstract art. I told my roommate where I was going, sent him her profile. He joked about the bio sounding creepy. I laughed it off. She was already inside when I arrived, standing near a large canvas that looked like random red streaks across black paint. She turned when she heard me approach and smiled like she had been expecting me at that exact second. She looked exactly like her photos. Same half smile, same steady eyes. We ordered wine. Mine was $12. Hers was something darker and more expensive looking. For the first 20 minutes, everything felt normal. We walked around the gallery, commenting on the art. She had thoughtful opinions about every piece. She asked what I saw in them. I gave basic answers. Then she asked what kind of ending I usually prefer. I thought she meant movies. I said I like closure. She nodded slowly. We moved to a small table near the back corner of the gallery where the lighting was lower. She placed her phone on the table between us. I noticed her lock screen was just a black background. She unlocked it and opened Tinder. Then she tapped on her profile. And something else. A list appeared. It was her match history. Not just names. Photos. Screenshots. Conversations. She scrolled slowly. Each match had a folder. Inside each folder were screenshots of conversations, dates planned, locations, and then something labeled ending. My chest tightened. I asked what that was. She said she likes to document outcomes. She tapped one folder. Inside were screenshots of a guy named Alex. The conversation looked normal at first. Then it showed messages after their date. The last message from him was polite, saying he did not feel a connection. Below that was a screenshot of his social media profile, deactivated. She tapped another folder. This one labeled Ben. Their conversation ended with him saying he would call her. Then a screenshot of a news article. Missing local man. My stomach dropped. I looked up at her. She was watching my face closely. She said not every ending is dramatic. She tapped another folder. This one labeled Carter. Their messages ended abruptly. Then a screenshot of him blocked. Then a note she had written underneath. Chose avoidance. My pulse was pounding now. I asked why she was showing me this. She tilted her head slightly and said, because I get to choose my endings. Then she scrolled to the bottom. There was a new folder. My name. It had already been created. I felt dizzy. I told her that was not funny. She smiled faintly. She said it is not supposed to be funny. She opened a folder. Inside were screenshots of our entire conversation from Tinder, even ones I did not remember sending. She had taken screenshots of my profile too. Pictures of my apartment building from Google Maps. A note under my name. Live alone. My heart slammed against my ribs. I asked how she knew that. She shrugged and said, "You told me." I felt trapped in my own words. Then she scrolled down to the part labeled ending. It was blank. She looked at me calmly. Then she asked which ending I preferred. My mouth went dry. I asked what my options were. She smiled. She tapped on 3 different examples from other folders. Ghosted. Disappeared. Memorable. The word memorable had a red underline beneath it. I felt like I could not breathe. I told her this was insane. She leaned back calmly and said I was overreacting. She said every connection ends somehow. She just likes to be intentional about it. I glanced around the gallery. A couple near the entrance sipping wine. The bartender polishing glasses. No one paying attention to us. I said I was leaving. She nodded slowly. Then she said that would fall under ghosted. I felt a wave of panic. I asked what happens under disappeared. She did not answer directly. She just looked at me with that same half smile. Then she asked if anyone knew I was there. My chest tightened. I said yes. She nodded slowly. Then she said that makes certain endings complicated. Complicated. My head was spinning. I stood up abruptly. She did not try to stop me. She just watched calmly. As I stepped away from the table, my phone buzzed. Tinder notification. I looked down. New message from Mona. I had not seen her typing. I opened it. Choose carefully. I looked back at her. She was still seated, holding her wine glass. My hands were shaking. I typed nothing. I walked straight out of the gallery without saying another word. The cool night air hit me hard. I did not look back. My phone buzzed again as I reached my car. Another message. Default applied. My stomach dropped. I blocked her immediately. Deleted Tinder in the parking lot. 2 days later, curiosity got the better of me and I searched her name online. Nothing came up. No social media. No trace. But when I opened my photo gallery later that night, there was a screenshot I did not remember taking. It was from Tinder. Her profile. And beneath her bio, one new line. Every story ends. I do not know which one she chose for me. I just know I never want to see that half smile again. I should have trusted the way he grabbed his phone too fast. It was not just a casual flip like someone hiding a text from an ex. It was panic. Sharp and immediate. Like he had let something slip that was never meant for me to see. And the worst part is I did see it. Clear as day. His name was Evan. We matched on a random Thursday night when I was swiping out of boredom. His profile looked completely normal. Gym picture, beach picture, one of him smiling in front of some skyline. His bio said he liked strategy games and precision. I thought that meant chess or something. We talked for about a week. He was polite, maybe a little dry, but nothing weird. He asked about my job. I told him I work in retail management. He asked if I live alone. I said yes, in a small apartment near the edge of town. He asked which area. I kept it vague. We agreed to meet at a sports bar near the highway. Not my favorite spot, but it was public and busy. Lots of screens playing games, loud enough that no one would overhear anything. I got there first and took a booth near the middle of the room. Visible from most angles. I always do that. He showed up 5 minutes later. Tall, broad shoulders, baseball cap pulled low. He smiled and slid into the booth across from me. We ordered food, burgers and fries. Total was around $41 with drinks. For the first 30 minutes, it felt normal. He talked about work. I talked about mine. He mentioned he used to live closer to the city, but moved recently. He did not say where. He kept his phone on the table, screen facing up. That stood out because most guys flip it over. About halfway through the meal, his phone buzzed. I glanced down it automatically. Tinder notification. But the preview text was not normal. It did not say new match or new message. It said target locked. My brain did not process it at first. Then I looked up. He had already flipped his phone face down. Too quickly. I stared at him. He forced a small laugh and said sorry, just a work thing. Work thing on Tinder. I felt my stomach twist. I asked what that was. He shrugged and said probably a glitch. I said it did not look like a glitch. He did not respond. He picked up his drink and took a long sip without looking at me. My heart was beating faster now. I tried to act calm. I asked if he was still active on Tinder even though we were on a date. He said he forgot to log out. Another buzz from his phone. He did not flip it over this time. But I saw the edge of the screen light up under his palm. I could not see the text, but I saw red. He pressed down on the phone like he was physically hiding it. I said, "Can you show me?" He shook his head and said it is nothing. That made everything worse. I felt like the air in the booth felt heavier. I glanced around the bar. People cheering at a game. Waitresses moving between tables. Everything normal. But inside that booth, it felt like something had shifted. I asked him again what target locked meant. He stared at me for a long second. Then he said it is a feature. My stomach dropped. I asked what kind of feature. He hesitated. Then he said it helps filter matches. I said that does not explain target locked. He leaned back slightly. Then he said it just means the app found someone compatible. My heart was pounding. I asked why it said that while we were sitting together. He did not answer. Another buzz. This time he picked up the phone quickly and slid it into his pocket. I felt cold all over. I said, "This is weird." He smiled faintly and said, "You are overthinking it." I glanced down at my own phone. No notifications. Nothing unusual. I said, "If it is nothing, show me." He shook his head again. Then he leaned forward slightly and lowered his voice. He said, "You were not supposed to see that." My chest tightened. I asked what that meant. He said the notification preview was usually disabled. Usually. My pulse was racing. I told him this was making me uncomfortable. He nodded slowly. Then he said, "We can leave if you want." The way he said it did not feel like an offer. It felt a suggestion with weight behind it. I said I needed to use the restroom. I stood up and walked toward the back of the bar. Once inside the restroom, I locked myself in a stall and pulled out my phone. I opened Tinder. My matches looked normal, but at the top of the screen there was a small banner I had never seen before. Proximity alert. My heart jumped. I tapped it. It showed a small map, a blue dot marking my location, and a red circle around it. Distance 0.1 miles. I felt dizzy. I closed the app immediately. My phone buzzed. Tinder notification. New message from Evan. I stared at the screen. He was still out at the booth. I opened it. It said stay calm. My hands started shaking. I had not told him I went to the restroom. Another message came through instantly. Do not run. My heart slammed against my ribs. I looked around the restroom. Empty. I unlocked the stall and walked quickly back toward the main room. He was still sitting at the booth. Calm. His phone on the table again. Screen face down. I stopped a few feet away. My phone buzzed again. Sit down. I did not move. He looked up at me slowly. Then he smiled faintly. My phone buzzed again. Do not make this complicated. I felt trapped in that moment. I forced myself to walk back to the booth and sit down. My legs felt weak. He leaned forward slightly. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. He said it works better when you cooperate. I whispered that this was not funny. He tilted his head. Then his phone buzzed again. He flipped it face down instantly, but not before I caught a glimpse. Target secured. My heart felt like it stopped. I stood up abruptly. He grabbed my wrist lightly. Not aggressive, just firm. He said you were reacting faster than expected. I pulled my hand free. I said I was leaving. He did not chase me. He just watched as I walked quickly toward the exit. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Too late. I did not look back. I got into my car and locked the doors. As I started the engine, I looked toward the entrance of the bar. He was standing just outside the door now, phone in his hand, staring directly at me. My phone buzzed one last time before I drove off. Session ended. I deleted Tinder that night, reported his account. 2 days later, curiosity got the better of me, and I re-downloaded the app just to check. His profile was gone. But when I opened the app before the swipe screen loaded, there was a flash of red text across the top. Searching. I deleted it again. Now every time someone keeps their phone face up on a date, I watch the screen more than their face, because sometimes the preview tells you everything. I should have lied. That is the first thing that hits me when I think about that night. If she had asked me what scared me most, and I had said something stupid like spiders or heights, maybe none of it would have lined up the way it did. But I answered honestly. And Tinder answered back. Her name was Celine. We matched on a random Tuesday evening when I was sitting in my car outside of my apartment, not ready to go inside yet. Her profile was simple but different. No group shots, no party pictures, just 3 photos of her in quiet places. One in a library, one in a bus stop at night, one sitting on a park bench staring straight into the camera. Her bio said she liked psychological questions and honest answers. I thought that sounded interesting, deeper than most. We talked for about 5 days before meeting. She asked unusual questions, even over chat. What do you think people hide most often? What is worse, being forgotten or being watched? I answered casually at first, but she always pushed a little further. We agreed to meet at a small rooftop greenhouse cafe. It was one of those trendy spots built on top of an old warehouse, filled with plants and string lights. The city skyline stretched out behind it. It felt open and safe. I told my friend where I was going, sent her profile. Normal habit. Celine was already there when I arrived, sitting at a small metal table near the railing. She looked exactly like her photos. Calm face, steady eyes. No big smile, just a soft, neutral expression. We ordered drinks. Mine was $9. Hers was tea. At first, it was normal conversation. She asked about my job. I told her I work in its support. She asked if I live alone. I said yes, small one bedroom, nothing fancy. She nodded like she was cataloging information. The rooftop was not too crowded. A few couples, a group of friends near the far corner. The wind was light, moving the leaves around us. After about 20 minutes, she leaned forward slightly and asked what scares me most. I laughed a little because it felt like a big question for a first date. I said I do not know, probably losing control. She did not look satisfied. She asked what that means. I thought for a second. Then I said not knowing what is happening, being in a situation where I cannot tell what is real or not. She stared at me carefully. Then she picked up her phone. She opened Tinder and went to our chat. I watched as she typed exactly what I said. Being in a situation where I cannot tell what is real or not. She hit send. I frowned. I asked why she was sending that. She did not answer. She just stared at the screen. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then a small gray bubble appeared below her message. It was not from me. It was not a normal chat reply. It was from the app. Compatible. Just that word. Compatible. She looked up at me and nodded slowly. My stomach tightened. I asked what that was. She said it is a feature she opted into. I asked what kind of feature. She said it tests emotional alignment. I laughed nervously and said that is not a thing. She tilted her head and said it isn't beta. I felt uneasy. I opened Tinder on my own phone. Our chat looked normal. No system message. Just her last message with my fear written out. I said I do not see anything. She turned her phone toward me. I saw it clearly. Her message. Then below it, a small gray line. Compatible. No username attached. No explanation. Just that. My heart started beating faster. I asked if she edited it somehow. She shook her head. She said she has done this before. She said the app responds differently depending on the answer. My chest felt tight. I asked what happens if it says incompatible. She paused. Then she said those dates usually end early. My pulse spiked. I asked what that means. She did not answer directly. Instead, she asked me to ask her the same question. I hesitated. Then I asked what scares you most. She looked at me without blinking. Then she said being predictable. She typed it into Tinder chat. Being predictable. She hit send. We both stared at her phone. A few seconds passed. Then another gray bubble appeared. Compatible. She smiled faintly. I felt cold. I asked what that means. She leaned back slightly and said it means we align. I said that is just coincidence. She shook her head slowly. Then she said the app only responds when it detects certain patterns. Patterns in what? She did not clarify. Instead, she asked another question. She asked what I would do if I felt unsafe right now. My throat went dry. I said I would leave. She nodded. Then she typed it into Tinder. If I felt unsafe right now, I would leave. She hit send. We waited. No response for a few seconds. Then a gray bubble appeared. Resistance noted. My heart felt like it stopped. I asked what that meant. She looked at me calmly and said it adjusts. I stood up slightly from my chair. She held up her hand gently and said sit. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I froze. I pulled it out slowly. Tinder notification. New message from Celine. I opened it. There was a new message in our chat. Not from her. Not from me. Stay seated. My chest tightened painfully. I looked up at her. She was not typing. Her hands were resting on the table. I said this is not funny. She nodded slowly and said it is not supposed to be. I felt like the rooftop had gotten smaller, like the space between us was shrinking. I tried to refresh the chat. The gray system messages were not visible on my phone, only on hers. I said I am leaving. She tilted her head slightly. Then she typed into Tinder again. He is leaving. She hit send. We both stared at her phone. Another gray bubble appeared. Escalate. My pulse exploded in my ears. I backed away from the table. She stayed seated. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Look behind you. I froze. I did not want to turn around, but I did. Standing near the entrance to the rooftop, two men in dark jackets were looking around slowly. Not directly at me, but scanning. I felt like I could not breathe. I turned back to her. She was watching calmly. I whispered, "What is this?" She said the app identifies shared fears and tests boundaries. I said, "This is insane." She typed again. He is panicking. Another gray bubble appeared. Compatible. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. I did not sit back down. I walked quickly toward the stairs without looking at her again. My phone buzzed nonstop as I descended. New messages. Stay. Wait. Almost aligned. I ignored them. I left the building and did not stop walking until I was 3 blocks away. When I finally checked Tinder again, our chat was gone. Her profile gone. Like it never existed. I deleted the app that night. But sometimes when my phone glitches for a split second while loading something, I see a faint gray word flash across the screen. Compatible. And I wonder what else it thinks aligns. I thought deleting the app would be the end of it. That is what everyone says, right? Just block, delete, move on. Clean break. No digital trail. But the last notification did not care that I had already hit delete. It waited until my screen went dark, until I finally relaxed, and then it lit up like it had been holding its breath. His name was Aaron. We matched on a random Sunday night when I was laying in bed pretending to watch something but really just swiping. His profile looked normal. Gym photos, one with a dog, one with a skyline behind him. Bio said he liked hiking and spontaneous road trips. Nothing weird. We talked for about a week. He was quick with replies but not overwhelming. Asked normal stuff. What I do for work. I told him I work in accounting. He asked if I live alone. I said yes, a small apartment near the east side. He asked if it was a secure building. I said kind of. I did not think much of that question at the time. We agreed to meet at a small brewery near the river. It was a relaxed place with long wooden tables and string lights overhead. I liked it because it was open and busy. I told my sister where I was going. Sent her his profile. Standard habit. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at one of the long tables. He stood up, smiled, gave me a quick hug. He looked exactly like his photos. We ordered drinks. Mine was $8. His was a larger one. For the first half hour, everything felt normal. He asked about my job. I asked about his. He said he works remote in cybersecurity. That stood out, but I did not think too deeply about it. He asked what floor my apartment was on. I said 3rd. He asked if there was a balcony. I said no. He asked what street I am closest to. I gave a vague answer. He smiled like he already knew. About 40 minutes in, he asked if I used Tinder's location features. I said not really. He said it is interesting how accurate it can be. My stomach tightened slightly. I asked what he meant. He said sometimes it shows when someone is within a few feet. I laughed and said that is creepy. He did not laugh. Instead, he pulled out his phone and opened Tinder. He turned the screen slightly toward me. I saw my profile at the top. Distance 0 miles. I felt my chest tighten. I said, well, yeah, we are sitting across from each other. He nodded. Then he refreshed the app. The distance flickered. 0 miles. 0 miles. 0 miles. Then it changed briefly to 0.01 miles, even though we had not moved. He frowned slightly. I asked what was wrong. He said it should be exact. My heart started beating faster. I said exact for what? He did not answer. Instead, he asked if I had location sharing turned on in my phone settings. I said no. He looked skeptical. The rest of the date fell off after that. He kept checking his phone, refreshing, watching the distance. At one point, he asked if I would be okay with him walking me home. I said no, I drove. He looked disappointed. I told him I needed to leave soon. He nodded slowly. When I stood up, he stood too. He said he would walk me to my car at least. I agreed because the parking lot was a little dark. As we walked, he stayed slightly behind me. I could feel him watching the back of my head. We reached my car. I unlocked it quickly. He stood there a little too close. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. He said it is interesting how the app sometimes keeps tracking even after a match ends. I asked what that meant. He smiled faintly and said nothing. I got into my car and locked the doors. As I drove away, my phone buzzed. Tinder notification. New message from Aaron. I opened it at a red light. It said safe drive. I did not reply. When I got home, I felt uneasy. I sat on my couch staring at my phone. Then another message came through. Distance updated. My heart started pounding. I looked around my apartment. Nothing unusual. I opened Tinder. Our chat was still there. I blocked him immediately. Then I deleted the app completely. I felt a little better after that. I put my phone down on the coffee table and leaned back on the couch. The room was quiet. Just the hum of my refrigerator. A few minutes passed. My phone lit up one last time, even though Tinder was deleted. Notification banner across the top. Match confirmed. Location shared. My full name underneath it. My heart stopped for a second. I grabbed my phone. The notification disappeared before I could tap it. There was no Tinder app on my screen anymore. No messages. Nothing. I felt dizzy. I opened my settings and checked location services. Tinder was not listed. Because it was deleted. My phone buzzed again. Text message from an unknown number. I opened it slowly. A screenshot. It was a map. A red dot marking my apartment building. And underneath it, a small line of text. Connected. My hand started shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. Another message came through. You should not have deleted it. I looked toward my window. The street below was quiet. Then I saw headlights turn the corner slowly. A car creeping down my block. My phone buzzed again. Arrival pending. I turned off all the lights in my apartment and crouched down near the wall away from the windows. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. The headlights slowed outside my building, then stopped. Another buzz. Here. I could not breathe. I stayed frozen for what felt like forever. Eventually, the headlights moved on. The car drove away. My phone stayed silent after that. I did not sleep that night. The next morning, I went to the police with the screenshots. They said it could be spoofed. A prank. Maybe. But 2 nights later, as I was laying in bed, my phone screen lit up briefly without a sound. Just for a second. And on the dark screen, before it went black again, I saw a faint line of text. Location active. I have not re-downloaded Tinder since. But sometimes when my phone warms up in my hand for no reason, I think about that last notification. And how I thought deleting the app would mean it was over.